documenting a structure that we found last night.
I'll go up to the house, bang on it, and say, "I don't believe."
Yeah.
Now,
What the fuck was that?
Did you hear that?
Hey, what's up, everybody out there in podcast land? This is the Cryptic Heartland podcast. This is episode number 12. As you can see, we have a full house tonight, which is good. That means the topics are going to be fast and fierce. We're going to have much to discuss. Remind you, this is the podcast that talks about everything from paranormal to Bigfoot to UFOs, pretty much everything under the sun and then some. I'm just one of the hosts here. I am Leo Fernandez with Everyday Legacy Paranormal, along with Road Trip Paranormal. To my left, I got the man with many hats.
Jason with Road Trip Paranormal, Everyday Legacy, goes towards Kansas and Bigfoot in Kansas too.
Michelle, Everyday Legacy and Road Trip Paranormal.
I'm Jeremiah with Everyday Legacy Paranormal and Road Trip Paranormal. I actually made it to 2 podcasts in a row.
That's amazing. That's amazing. For anybody that cares out there, it's Road with Everyday Legacy and Road Trip Paranormal.
Nobody cares. No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. And behind the man behind the computer is
Max with Everyday Legacy Paranormal.
Yep. And we also have some people in studio. We have my young son Leo, and we also have Gloria, who's behind. They can jump in every now and then, speak their piece, and we should have some fun. This week, our topic's going to be, for me, a fun one, I feel. We've been waiting to do this for a little while. We're going to be discussing some of the greatest conspiracies out there, but not the one you guys are probably thinking of. That comes on a later show, so we'll save that one for another time. But how's everybody's weekend going? I can't even talk now. Blah. How's everybody's weekend going so far?
It's going. It's been 104 outside in Wichita, so it's been miserable.
Telling you. What about you guys down at the end?
Man, it couldn't be any better. I smoked some ribs over the weekend, drank some wine.
See, I heard that dog did.
I did too.
Yeah,
I was like, I'm sure it's good for you.
If the subject matter isn't bad enough, now we're definitely getting shut down.
God, I hope so.
Fired our smoker up at like 2 o'clock this morning.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, he sent me a picture. It's all like crackling. I was like,
yeah, there's nothing better. Except paranormal.
Well, guys, people out home, out in podcast land, remind you, we film in a live haunted studio. So you never know what you're going to hear, see, what's going to pop up on screen. So if you hear any voices at home, that's not ours. It's probably real. Probably a ghost, possibly.
Well, we've had guests even comment
Yeah.
online that they've heard things.
Definitely. And then also, don't forget, people at home watching us live, you can chime in anytime you want to. There's a live chat on the right side of the screen. Or you can call in directly to the phone and be heard, be part of the podcast. Phone number here is going to be 316-617-1232. Once again, that's 316-617-1232. Hopefully this week we have our first caller or somebody call in. If not, we know we're going to have people in the future where we're going to have guests call in directly. So, what do you think? Should we just dive right in head first? And
Do it.
Yes.
start spreading some lies and rumors and hate? What do you say?
Do it.
All right.
I love conspiracies.
Me too. I think what makes a great conspiracy is the fact that you don't know if it's fact, fake. You don't know if there's any kind of truth behind it. That the more you look into it, the more you read about it, it seems like you get possibly maybe there is changing everything I've ever been taught from history or whatever. Maybe it changes my point of view.
Well, and with the continuous research that people do on it, even like the story that we're going to start with, it's over 60 years old.
Backstreet Boys?
Yes. We are.
Sorry, keep talking. Yeah, go ahead, keep talking. Keep talking. It's right up Rose Alley. I mean Ruby, sorry.
Ruby.
You were saying anyway about the.
It's over 60 years old, and they are continuously researching it. And there's been documentaries just as early as this year
Yeah, I saw
that they've
one.
had,
Yep.
where they keep finding new evidence, possibly leading to the exact person who did it.
Yeah.
But they still have no answers, and they can't do any arrests, basically.
Right.
Do they have something prior to 2014 or
As far as what?
like new evidence?
You weren't listening, were you?
No, I was like surprised I
just
actually heard
said.
you. That's why I'm asking.
I just said as early as this year.
Yeah, there's quite a few stuff. That's
Why is it that you can find this stuff and I can't? I don't
It
know.
was on TV.
Yeah, I don't watch TV.
You're out in your pool with your noodle.
Oh,
With your
umbrella.
Whoa, wait a minute. With this noodle?
Yeah.
Noodle.
His noodle and
Or
his
his
umbrella.
flamingo.
So,
I don't know what that.
that's for everyone.
I don't know what that means.
You know
But
that.
leave that one there.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, they're still doing it now.
Yep.
As of this, what was it last year? 2016, the FBI actually said on this case alone, they are stopping. They've reassigned the one investigator that was on it, reassigned, and they've closed the case.
And they actually opened all the files up to the public, right?
Well,
From
I
what
mean,
I've heard.
everything. I mean,
Yeah.
how much do they actually really, allow,
Yeah.
without stuff being
Yeah.
blacked out halfway through the page? It just says this date. The
Gotcha.
rest of it could be blacked out, which is what they usually
So
do.
did they do that?
So we haven't even discussed.
Hold on.
who-
Jump
we
the
haven't-
gun here, Ruby.
We haven't even said who we're
Slow
talking
down
about. Yeah, we don't even know who we're talking
In
about.
case people at home haven't figured it out yet, the person we're talking about is the infamous disappearance of the hijacking of Flight 305 by one and only D.B. Cooper that we'll tell you a little more about here in just a second.
Wait, D.B. Cooper?
Did I thought we were talking about
D.B.
Bigfoot.
D.B.
Sorry, folks.
Sorry.
Hey. So D.B. Cooper, what the story behind that goes, I can't even talk. Still, the story behind it is on the day before Thanksgiving in 1971, a guy jumps on a plane and basically
He buys his ticket
Yep.
under a name. He gets on board. He's dressed very well. He's got a suit tie on, trench
Yep.
coat, carrying a briefcase.
Yep.
He's very polite. He's very calm. He orders 2 drinks, bourbon with water. It's during that time when he passes a note to the stewardess after the flight's already in air. You want me to keep going?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, they're fine.
So, after he passes the note, he takes it back from her. That's why nobody has the note and nobody can check,
Handwriting.
handwriting or anything. And it says on the note, as the stewardess says, it says, "I have a bomb." And he even opened the briefcase to show her what looked like cylinders and wires all in it. Well, at that point, that's when he gave his demands of what he wanted. You can add anything
No, go ahead. Keep
Okay.
going,
Just
Jim.
go.
So he was under the name of Dan Cooper.
Right,
D.B. Cooper was actually flubbed by the media.
right.
Go figure.
What? Shocking.
Yes.
Media screw something up? No.
No, it's kind of like the whole Yeti or Sasquatch or Bigfoot. That it's the media who actually ends up naming it or naming the person because they get it out there on the mainstream, and that's why they do it. The media actually thought they were talking about another criminal who was a bank robber, and he was under the initials of D.B. Cooper, so they just put the 2 and 2 together, thinking that's what the police were talking about. But actually, he went simply by Dan Cooper. That's what is on his plane ticket.
Yep. The plane was deporting from Portland, Oregon, headed to Seattle. Like Jason said, he ordered wine.
Bourbon and water.
Oh, bourbon and water. Sorry, I don't want to say wine. My bad. Yeah. Anyway. He seemed like they said was very businesslike, like you said, kind of professionally dressed, real calm. He asked, once they landed in Seattle, he asked for $200,000 in cash. That's the ticket right there with his name, Dan Cooper, from that day, the original ticket. that the FBI has. And like I said, he asked for $200,000 in cash. He asked for 4 parachutes, food for the crew, and then he also released every passenger except for 3 pilots and the 1 flight attendant. Once that all the money was given to him, which happened to be all marked bills by the FBI, they took off the flight, headed back towards, they said south, into the darkness, and it started raining at that point. About 45 minutes after leaving Seattle, Mr. Cooper orders the flight attendant to the cockpit, puts on 1 parachute. He also has all the money strapped around his belt on his person, and he lowers the rear stairs and jumps off into the darkness, never to be heard from and seen from again, so they think. But
And didn't he request to go 10,000 feet? Is that what I heard?
He did keep it at a very low
Yeah.
level and to keep the plane going at only 200 miles an hour.
yeah,
With
Which-
landing gear down.
Yeah,
Right.
which he ended up having the,
that's me.
which, and then he was manually led the back staircase down
Right.
to it. Now, Max, you can put up the photograph of the plane down, being fueled up. That's the actual plane itself
Right.
from the night of the hijacking. Because after they landed with and he let everybody off except for the few the pilots and the 1 stewardess, plane was refueled and he asked for the plane to be taken to Mexico. And that's the real plane. That's all them. He was actually very well. I mean, he knew about the police and their snipers, so he wanted all the lights off on the plane so they couldn't see in there. He even ordered food. He asked them if they were all hungry and wanted to get them all food and stuff like that. And so he wasn't like a crazy, angry person, which he was, they said, very calm, which makes it all more appealing to me. And that is what it looks like now. Imagine that up in the air, flying at 200 miles an hour, and he's lowering, walking down the staircase there with snow and rain coming down. It was a very cold, wintry night with a mixture of rain and snow.
Yeah, I think they said with the wind chill it was negative 69.
Yeah, it was. But, now there's, I don't know if I'm jumping on
No,
your
go
feet
ahead.
or anything.
It was-
They had 2 fighter planes that were flying behind it. They never once noticed him jumping. Because I guess whether it was because of the view, they couldn't see very well or anything like that. He was able to jump. The pilot and stewardess actually felt the jolt of what sounded like somebody taking their last little jump off the staircase, and they could feel the plane and that jolt, and then that was it.
Wow.
You wouldn't think somebody could make that plane feel a jolt. That doesn't.
Well, one thing they said too, they noticed was that immediately the pressure changed in the cabin when they were flying. Like their ears started kind of, it was the air when he opened the actual back rear stairs. They could tell something wasn't right. They call it the bumps. They call it on some of the reports I read, basically.
Maybe that was the stairs actually being lowered.
Could be. Could be. One thing I noticed was that when they actually landed in Seattle, hang on, sorry, I just got stuck on something. The only thing that was left on the actual plane itself was 2 out of the 4 parachutes and the black tie that Cooper had been wearing was left on the seat he was sitting in.
Right.
I think we have pictures of the actual ties. I know Mac's going to pull up here just a little bit, so.
It should be up there any second.
Okay, you're fine. And
So,
go ahead, sorry.
what do they think happened to the other parachute?
Okay, I'll go on that in just a bit too. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I mean, if that's
I was just
something
gonna answer the
we're
question.
Yeah,
already
go
in.
answer the question. Go ahead and answer.
Well, okay,
Right
so he, there's reports of either he asked for 2 parachutes or 4 parachutes. He picked the one that he wanted, which a lot of them think that makes him, somebody who's done it before, whether he's military or something like that. The rest of the other parachutes, they are left on there. He jumps out. Yeah, so when he disappears into the night. They don't find any trace evidence of him for, years later.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I mean, it just because if you ask for 4 parachutes and there's only 2 left on the plane, where's the parachute?
Well, I'm saying I can't. What's the reports of it?
Okay, here's the
He either
deal.
asked for 2 and took 1, or he asked for 4 and took 1 and left the other 3 there. He left them all behind.
It's questions like that the FBI and everybody else was asking themselves too. What happened to the other parachute? You know, was there 2 people on the plane? What was the deal? You know, just kind of things like that.
I thought they have it though.
Well,
I think it's great that it's clip-on tie.
They do.
Those were big back then.
He actually requested a front and back parachute, which gave them information to think maybe he was at least a novice skydiver. He knew something about it a little bit, maybe didn't know 100%. I found some other interesting facts about that specific stuff.
Maybe that's what it, maybe it was 2 sets of 2 parachutes.
It could be. He also asked for the non-steerable military parachute, which once again, since he was at least knowledgeable of it. It said that one thing they noticed also about it, the military chute could better withstand the actual speed of the plane. So he knew kind of what he was doing by asking for these type of certain, you know, parachutes.
You didn't have Google back then, so you couldn't have looked at which one.
It said he also took the reserve chute that was sewn closed and non-functional, which once again gave him a novice kind of he knew some stuff that in case something happens, he knew how to deploy it. So, I mean, it's things like that. That's what they think happened to the second one, possibly. But the only thing they can really find is 2 remaining chutes. But they found the remains of it later on down the road.
Yeah, they
in
found.
the actual,
Yeah.
where he should have jumped or landed.
Oh, they actually did find
Yeah,
it was-
FBI has it.
It was over the years they found the notice sign from the rear door of the plane,
Mm-hmm.
and then they also found a parachute. And then in 1980,
Mm-hmm.
you can.
Yeah.
And then in 1980, they actually were able to
They
find
found more stuff.
some of the actual bills.
Yeah, they found, I think, what was it?
It was
2
about
bags?
it was about $5,000 worth
The
of
Corvette
rotting
also was 5,800.
rotting bills.
Yeah. It was a young boy named Brian Ingram was actually digging in a sand fire pit.
Yeah.
On a place
Wasn't
called
it down by the river or
yeah,
something?
Tina Bar is what it's called.
Yeah.
It's north of Portland by the Columbia River.
Yeah, by
Yeah.
the
They found this money, and the reason they know it's D.B. Cooper's money, or Dan Cooper, should I say, is because they were all marked bills, and the serial bills matched the actual what they found. I mean, they found 3 bundles intact, fully intact. Other than the fact they were rotting basically from being in the water. They think because of the sand, the way it was actually lying on the bar, they think it was because it's kind of fresher sand they found it in. This is 1980. It happened in 1971.
That was me.
Oh, I heard noise. Sorry. They think possibly it was upstream, and they got pushed down possibly to this location where it was resting when the boy found it. It's all speculation. There's no guarantee of what. I mean, there's no perimeter where to look at least.
So what kind of bag did they find it in?
It was free. It was floating.
Oh, it was free.
That's why it's rotted.
Interesting.
I heard it was found in a bag.
Did you?
I heard
Yeah.
there were
I mean,
2.
it could be. I mean,
I heard there were
very-
two bags.
I heard it was 2 bags, and
2
the
bags.
rubber bands were still
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah,
Three
that,
bundles.
that,
Yeah.
3 bundles. they said.
I've read that
Yeah.
in several places
3
that
bundles.
the rubber bands were still on it, but it don't.
But here's the thing. Some people have now come out to think that it was actually placed there on purpose.
It was buried, possibly.
It
Well,
was
you
very
would think
hot.
if it wasn't a bag that.
Well, and here's the thing. The boy who found it, they just had to be walking along the beach, and the dad was like, let's start a fire. Let's get a fire going. And he's like, go over there and get that log that's over there. He goes over and gets the log, and just moving the log happened to like uncover something under the dirt and sand, and all of a sudden there's money.
Right.
It was like a little weird and coincident that it was that easy to find. Just lift up that little log, and
Right.
there it was. So some believe that there's like a whole nother story of, okay, maybe he did survive, and maybe there's a reason why, because in the documentary that came out, it was, I think it was History Channel,
Yeah.
had a huge documentary on it, 2-parter. There's a guy who came out, and I can't remember his name, I'm sorry. He came out and just said, you know what, I think somehow he pinpointed there's a boy in a family that's going to find that money tomorrow.
Yeah, he specifically gave specific information about it.
To his
really?
to his friends and stuff. And next thing you know, on the news, there's the boy and the dad holding up the money and
Yeah.
stuff.
I'm sorry.
It's like, okay, well that's a little weird, you know, that's a little.
Yeah, it seems too low coincidental. And
Right.
he knew specifics about things. So
Right.
they're thinking, okay, was this possibly be Dean Cooper? They tested against him to see, or you know, did DNA tests, things of that nature, to see if it wasn't, you know, him himself. But they all came back inconclusive, or you know, pretty much said it wasn't him. They think, but they also didn't rule him out.
Right.
Which there's been a couple of people along the way that had the same thing, had weird background stories, and all of a sudden.
Yeah, my favorite one is Kenny Christensen. You know that one?
You had a couple myself. So go
Okay.
ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
So one that I like, and I sent you the pictures from Kenny.
This is
you know
the
what I'm
old
talking
one,
about.
the old background one you asked me about.
I've got a portrait of his face, and then there's one with him standing there with the briefcase and the trench coat. Did you get those? Okay. Kenny Christensen. We're going to bring up in just a moment. He came under the radar for everything. And this picture was found by his own brother after Kenny had already passed away.
Cooper's brother?
No.
His brother.
This is Kenny Christensen.
That's his name.
His brother thinks that Kenny was D.B. Cooper. All for the simple fact of this photograph he found in the house that was hidden behind another photograph. You can see the satchel of money and a briefcase that D.B. Cooper was told to have been carrying. He's got the trench coat, and Kenny also worked for the same airline. Worked for the same airline. Prior to the events, he always wore a toupee, which, you know, as you can see from the portrait of D.B. Cooper in this sketch artist picture, he's got full hair, you know. After the events of November, there's Kenny Christensen on the right, and then you got a portrait of sketch artists from the witnesses on the flight of D.B. Cooper. Now, Kenny stopped wearing his hairpiece after the event and just remained that way ever since. Not to mention, he got a lot of money out of nowhere when everyone knew he was struggling. And he was actually complaining to all of his friends about how the airline was screwing over their employees and everything. Well, he was able to, all of a sudden, he bought a house, he had friends out with some debts, and then he just lived out his life quietly.
But the money.
But here's the thing, you know, they weren't, you know, you can do things with money to get rid of it so they can't track you. You can go to, you can launder it, you can go to the casinos, you can go wherever to do stuff. Kenny was also a paratrooper, thank you, in the military. And he was stationed up in Alaska, and he was trained to parachute in cold weather.
That's interesting.
Exactly. And a friend of his was actually at the events of November, was it November 21st, 71?
Well, when he did it?
Yeah.
It was November 23rd.
November 23rd, 1971. He's missing, and his best friend is missing. His friend rented a camper and took his truck in the camper and was not far off the beaten path of the actual jump zone area. So they, I watched an interview where they interviewed this friend, and you could tell he was absolutely terrified and actually admitting to anything. And they kept telling him this, you know, the statute of limitation is over. There's nothing that can happen to you. And he just kept shaking his head, I don't know anything. I don't know anything.
Wow.
You know? So that's a possibility, but they've never been conclusive to whether or not that was him or not. Now, his house today is a business. Somebody turned the house into a business, so he can't really,
Right.
can't really go in there. But go ahead. You can move on to this next one because I don't know who this is.
Okay. Oh, yeah, up there. Okay, so the
I
next
clicked it
one.
early. I apologize.
No, I was listening to the story and kind of waiting
So,
patiently.
no, so you can go on with this guy. I heard about him.
Well, there's a couple different suspects. This one happens to be a guy named Richard Lepsy.
Yeah.
What the deal with him is, his own daughter happened to see the sketch when it first popped up, and goes, "Oh my God!" And she had a couple brothers and sisters, and they're like, "That's Daddy!" Right away, they knew it was Dad. They swear up and down it's him. What makes it interesting about that is her dad, Richard Lepsy, was a grocery store manager who disappeared in 1969 after going to work one day, never to be seen again. His car was found days later at a nearby airport with the key still in the ignition. So once again, you have somebody who looks like this Dan Cooper guy, who is close to an airport, has accessibility to it, and then disappears, kind of like the guy you just talked about. Same thing. One thing the FBI stated is Cooper spoke with no accent. They believe he's from somewhere from the Midwest, possibly. And this Richard Lepsy grew up in Chicago before moving to his current place where he lived last. So I mean, he would have fit that that profile. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say, well, you finish.
Oh, you're fine. The tie that was left behind by Dan Cooper himself, it was the same tie they say that was required to be worn by all employees in the supermarket that he was store manager of. So.
Huh.
And they have pictures like you see, he's wearing a suit similar to it. He has a tie similar to it. He has the same type of hairstyle. Which, 1971, I mean, that was kind of a. To me, it looks more like a 50s, 60s style haircut in a way. So for 71, for similar people to be having the same haircut, I mean, it's possible, of course, I know people still wear that same haircut to this day,
It got really popular here lately. The whole cut in the side there.
Now, I know
sorry.
that they actually said that the only thing that
Go ahead.
made him not probably a prime suspect is the fact that he probably didn't have any knowledge
Right.
for the plane and the airline itself,
Right.
going to, keep it at this level, keep it at this speed, do it all this. And then,
His back profile didn't really
Yeah,
fit
his
the mold.
profile,
I mean, as
but-
far as somebody who's experienced jumper, anything like that, or it's
Now,
just-
am I
sorry.
jumping the gun because
No, the plane.
like,
Sorry.
well, on this, because I know you guys might be bringing it up
Go ahead.
here in a little bit, but as far as back in the day, back in those days, a lot of people wore ties.
Right. Of course, yeah.
I mean, you could be working anywhere and they wore suit ties.
Yeah.
But one thing that I found interesting is today they've gone in and actually done some checking on the tie
Mm-hmm.
with that clip
Right.
and found all the chemicals that were on there. You know what I'm talking
Right.
about?
Yeah.
And so, but they say when they break down those chemicals that were found on the tie,
Mm-hmm.
the only way that you could get those chemicals was to work through Boeing, because Boeing
Right.
was using those chemicals for government planes.
Right. That was one of the theories. Was he a Boeing employee for that reason?
Right.
I've heard that before over the
Yeah.
years. Even as recent, they brought that up again.
Yeah,
Last
because
8
they
months.
tested the clip, and
Yeah.
the clip had, and I can't remember the name, you can probably look it up, but there was like 3 different types of chemicals that were found on the clip.
Yeah,
Are you
only-
familiar?
yeah.
Can you be an employee of the airline and be around
Well,
that?
okay, see, they talk a little bit more about that, and no, because it had to do, they said the only way that you could get close to those chemicals were if you were in management,
Right.
or you were an actual employee on that plane, meaning you were using the chemicals on the plane.
Right.
That was it. And so they said it was either management, because you're there on the floor inspecting, or you're working. But like they said, why would the employees actually have a tie on? They're not going to.
Right.
It's going to be management that's walking around and is going to, they're going to be put in that situation where the chemical actually is getting on, I guess, the tie. So that's one thing that interested me is, okay, so why, it's almost like they stopped it there. Why not go, okay, in this particular date within a week or 2 or a month, you go back and see, okay, what management quit?
Well,
Or maybe
right.
didn't show up for work one day. But why wouldn't you go that far?
Well, that's a good question, but you also have over 60 years of people trying to investigate this, and it keeps going in dead ends every time.
Right, but my question is why stop there? Because you know how easy it would be with the resources that we have now. You would think, okay, so if they did find those chemicals, and they can sit here and say, okay, those 3 chemicals were only used on this government plane or this area at Boeing. Okay, now maybe we go back into, did somebody quit? Did somebody get fired? Did somebody do no-show? And he's in upper management. My question is, why would they stop there? Because if you can already say it had to have been a Boeing employee because of those chemicals found on the clip, why? Okay, and now you can just quit.
Well, that was one theory they tested. I mean, it came up as recent as January this year about the Boeing incident. The thing you're talking about, it's called, they say it's titanium particles found on Cooper's side that came from something called Tektronix, which may have been doing some contract work for Boeing back in the 60s through 70s. 71, excuse me, matter of fact, when the project was actually canceled in 1971. And they were doing it on a supersonic transport jet known as the SST, they said. So it's a titanium particle seed that you're talking about.
And so if you took the date of when they started using that chemical, it was pretty recent compared to when they started using those chemicals compared to the dates that he jumped. So what I'm saying is it's not like somebody used that tie for 5 years and they were in management and dropped it off at a DAV and he happened to walk by and picked it up for a quarter.
He could have borrowed friends.
Right, but if you look at the dates of when they started.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
No.
He could have borrowed
You know what I'm
friends.
saying?
He could have taken that from anybody.
Right. There's speculation the tie that may not have been the one he was wearing. He may still had it on him at the time. That they
You
he
know,
just placed
it there,
he just placed it
They
there.
don't even know if that was his.
They consider it could have been another passenger that happened to just take his tie off or whatever.
Yeah.
There's different theories behind that. I mean, without having the actual, that's just it. They have no body. There's no actual body found in that area. They searched and searched. They found money. They found stuff like that. They just can't find an actual physical body. And nobody come forth saying it was me or claiming to be.
It was me.
Okay. There's another guy that was on there too. The suspect of the guy with the kind of the blurry one you'll see in just a minute here. And what?
No.
Oh,
Don't shoot.
Yeah.
and there he is. This guy looks close to him too. Once again, his name is Lynn Doyle Cooper. Ironic last name, close enough. D. Cooper. One thing they said the DNA failed to link him, but once again, they couldn't discord it, basically saying that it wasn't him that did it. It's actually his niece, Marla Cooper, who overheard 2 uncles plotting something she calls suspicious around Thanksgiving. No, they didn't do Thanksgiving that same year. They said they were going to do something on Thanksgiving or something in 1971 at her grandmother's house, who happens to be in Oregon, of all places. So once again, it's getting closer to the plot, the theory. The thing that's weird is the 2 uncles disappeared at the same day of the hijacking. They weren't found for a while, or at all. She said, but however, not long after the hijacking, one of the uncles that was talking about it first reappeared, injured, claiming that it happened in a car accident. But she said, I never bought the story. He just happened to disappear for a few days, and all of a sudden he comes back injured. Well, somebody like D. Cooper jumps from a plane, gets injured on the flight down, and then it comes back. It's possible. Another thing that was really suspicious about the whole thing, when his niece, Marla's dad, actually passed away in 1995. He told her that her long-lost uncle hijacked that plane. Came from his brother's mouth. And then her mother made the same claims in 2009. So once again, it adds to the theory, but DNA couldn't really link anything to him. I mean, there was no money found, there was nothing like that. It's just more circumstances that were suspicious in nature, that kind of had some ties to Oregon area, similar names, similar things. I mean, it's just,
And you have
who knows?
the FBI who's been working on it for 60 years.
Mm-hmm.
Over
Isn't
60
that
years.
crazy?
And they've tracked down every single location that they possibly can.
Right.
What are you going to say?
Jason?
I was born in 71, and I'm pretty sure I'm not 60, even if I try to punch my age.
Sorry.
That's just what I'm saying.
Sorry.
It wasn't.
Sorry.
Oh, I got you.
Well, I don't know.
Yeah.
Last time you were on the show, you said you were 127. So
Yeah,
I don't know
that's
if I'm
true.
freaking
Oh,
out.
I know.
But ever since 71, sorry, my math. But since 71, they've been working every angle they possibly can.
That's crazy, isn't
You
it?
know? And they just now recently closed it because it's what does it matter now?
So you watch a lot of those shows on the history stuff. I was scrambling around through TV not too long ago and saw one that they just recently done where some guys actually went out. I think it was that show you and I were talking about off, you know, I think was it The Mystery? The guy does a bunch of different stuff and goes out and he films it. Weren't they out there along that river trying
There's
to
a lot
find?
of people.
What was that show?
No, that was Decoded. Brad
That's it.
Messler's Decoded.
That's it. I
Yeah.
actually saw one on there. that
Yeah,
they
it was
were-
about that, and they talked about Kenny Christensen.
Yeah,
That's the
yeah.
one that they were trying to track down.
Okay. Yeah, because I think they didn't have a bunch of people on that riverbed.
Oh, from day one.
Wow.
Yeah, from 71 on.
Amazing.
They've been trying to, but then they figured out that they probably were looking in the wrong area.
Yeah, and why was that? Didn't they do something where they thought maybe where he actually?
They don't know exactly where he jumped. They just speculate.
Right.
With two fighter jets following behind the 727 jetliner, you know,
So
they
other
still
than that,
didn't even see
other
him
than that bomb, they don't.
they don't even know what that was. To be honest, I mean, they just speculate that was
Speculation.
him. It's all speculation. It's just the fact that I think he's awesome
Yeah.
for doing what he did.
I mean,
I-
there's a lot of
I
things
think
we're going
it's
to talk
awesome.
to that tonight are speculation.
Yeah.
I mean,
So,
there's-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
So stealing from the government $200,000 is awesome.
I think so. Why
Yeah.
not? He got away with it. Whoever he was.
Just thought I'd throw that out there.
It's estimated at, like 1.2 million or something today, if that was today happening. But thanks to Cooper, we have the security that we do now for airlines. You know, we have the checkpoints, we have the pat downs. I mean, he was the kind of the start of that.
Did he jump out of the plane with the bomb?
Yeah, he took everything.
Every evidence he had
Other than the
supported
tie
That'd be
and
kinda dangerous.
the
Yep,
glasses.
the tie was his.
Yeah.
Oh, and glasses he kept on.
Oh, he did?
He never took the sunglasses off. He had that
Right.
photograph. Yeah, the only thing they know of him is with the sunglasses. The drawing of him with the no sunglasses, just interpretation.
Well, I was wondering why in each of those photos between like yours and Leo's, the eyes
Yeah.
look completely different.
because they were just, they made up what they thought was behind the glasses, basically.
The
They had no
only-
proof of what this guy looks like.
Yeah, the stewardess was the only real person who interacted with him the most. I mean, some passengers kept turning around and looking,
Right.
and some of them were even noticing, this guy who came on the plane sitting down by himself with sunglasses on, and some of them were like, okay, who's this guy? But he took everything with him.
I got a question. Why the shoes, extra shoes? Did he think he was going to lose? Why did he take an extra pair of shoes?
Well, if he's
Shoots? Parachutes?
Shoes.
Shoes, though. The
No.
shoes.
I don't know anything about shoes.
Took extra parachute.
You think-
Shoes.
No,
Just
it's parachutes. 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 Extra
Okay.
shoots. Yeah, sorry.
No, you're fine. There's been a couple of shows also recently. Mythbusters being one of them. Went through and did, simulation of everything, tried to see if they could do it, make the jump, all that stuff. And Jason and I's favorite, Josh Gates, did on an episode of Expedition Unknown recently. He did the same thing. He went to one of the most experienced, jumpers he could find, and he actually did the jump with them in broad daylight, though,
Yeah.
and they survived it. But this was at night in bad
Yeah.
weather, and
But if you're a paratrooper and you were
1971.
trained in it,
yeah.
maybe you could.
Would he have access to his suitcase so he could have got maybe cold weather clothing?
Possible. I mean,
I mean,
the
no one's seen
indicator's
him
never been
jump
found.
out of the back of the plane. He could have changed into anything.
Yeah, he could have changed. He could have pulled because he only opened it a brief little bit to show a bunch of wires and stuff. Who knows
Right.
if there's anything tucked
Could
underneath
have
there?
been false false front.
Because he sent the stewardess up front with,
Yeah.
with the pilots, left himself by himself,
Yeah.
and then jumped.
Do you have a question, Leah?
No, but in the show,
Which show?
the one on History Channel,
Mm-hmm.
it says that he got the parachutes and he brought all 4 of them.
Oh, see, there's all kinds of disputes and things like that because they show the FBI does have, like I said, the parachutes. There's evidence of him. One of the ones that was supposed to be sewn shut. That one, they have that one. It's like a pink nylon looking thing. I've seen the pictures of it. From all the money that they recuperated. So they did recuperate. Anyways, no, but it's just a fascinating story that he was able to even do this. I mean, it's.
Today you can pay big money to go up in a 727 and do the jump.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they
I
do
don't
it.
think I'd want to pay for that.
No, me neither. But they do it. You can do it. I mean, they showed it. The traders that go up and take
The
people
little
up.
town there every year does a big old convention.
Yeah.
It's just freaking believable.
Yeah,
Well, that's a
D.B.
reason
Cooper
to-
Days.
Yeah,
That's what they
yeah.
call it.
You dress up as him and drink your night away.
Yeah, it's called D.B. Cooper Days. Yeah, it's kind of funny that hey,
Why not?
Yeah, we
their
should.
version of Bigfoot, aka, Nessie, Loch Ness Monster, it's their version of it, so make money off it, I guess.
Why not?
So what's your theory? Did he make it? Did he not
That's a
make
good
it?
question, actually. I'd like to think he made it,
Mm-hmm.
and he retired somewhere with the rest of the money he had, but why it's never been traceable, who knows? I mean, that.
Why was the only pack of money found when?
Was the rest of the money just scattered across, Oregon forest somewhere? Is it?
And this is who they believe he got the name Dan Cooper. It's not his real name.
Right.
He got it from a comic book series that's from I think it's overseas.
Yeah, well, it's like French.
Yeah, Belgium or something like that is what they said.
Yeah, definitely.
But it was a series of comic books all called Dan Cooper.
Yeah. And there just happened to be a parachuter. Hey, look at
Yeah. So this is where they think he got his genius of coming up with a big scheme. I know, it's awesome and fascinating.
that.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
We have another in-studio question. Yes, sir.
Was there any accounts of one of the suspects spending a lot of money?
No, that's just it. There's no money spent of this. I mean, the only thing they found was $5,800 is what I heard. 5,000 that first 3 bundles was 5,800, and even if he tried to spend it, it's traceable. I mean, it's all marked bills, all 100,000.
Unless he laundered it. I mean, if he put enough planning into it, he could have.
Right.
He could have had all the resources he need to, have it laundered and.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it still show up somewhere?
It could if it's like if I take a dollar bill and look at it, and that serial number is the only ones I know. The D.B. Cooper serial numbers. I mean, it's possible, but they have to actually look for it. And, maybe they have. I don't know. They don't really go into details about stuff like that, other than they've done all the extensive research they could. The investigating part of it. And
if it was put into circulation, really and truly, if it was put into circulation overseas or something like that, whoever laundered it for him took his cash and put it in circulation overseas or in another country.
It's gonna be a bad day when it makes it back this way, though. I'm gonna go to the gas station. Here's $20 in gas. All of a sudden, SWAT got me.
I'm sorry. 1971. I mean, you could get away with a lot of things.
Yeah.
You didn't have the technology to trace things.
Or did they?
that's just it, or did they? You don't know. Right. But regardless, there hasn't been any suspect yet caught who they charged actively. There's nobody that's even come close. I mean, other than a few suspects that Jason and I brought up, the pictures that resembled them. Had interesting backstories, but no DNA. The tie itself didn't have anything on there. So it's a great, fascinating story. So who thinks he got away or made it? I mean, do you think? I mean, honestly,
I think he made it.
I think
I think he did it.
it's like the majority says, yeah.
There would have been more evidence to a body or something.
Yeah.
I mean,
Clothing.
even if animals got him, there would be some sort of
The clothing, something.
parachute.
Parachutes.
The briefcase.
One of the resources that I looked at said that there were like 1,000 infantrymen searching that area.
Oh,
Yeah,
In
in
the-
full force. And
yeah, I mean-
military, yeah.
They would have
It was a
found
large-scale search for that, and they came up with nothing.
And if they did find the parachute, it was probably
It was
full
several
time.
years ago.
Yeah, it was
I was gonna say,
later.
they did find one.
Yeah,
That was later,
But
years
they
later.
didn't know if it was actually his or not.
Right, I mean,
Right.
Right.
it could have been.
Nicole
Yeah, I
said
think
she
it
made
fit the style, I guess, of what was on the plane that he took. Because they knew which type of parachutes they gave.
Yeah. So, I mean, either way, it's one of the greatest mysteries of our time that has never been solved. And that's why we talk about it.
Has anybody found out if the money is worth anything?
Yeah,
Like
for
that?
$20.
Is
Per
it,
bill.
I mean, is there, like the money that those kids found? Was it worth anything?
It was so
Is it-
rotten, I don't know if they
No,
were
you saw
doing
the pictures of it. It's not usable.
Yeah,
it's like
it's-
chunks of.
black and
The
I didn't know money could
FBI.
rot.
The FBI has actual like fragments of it. It's just all like dust, powder. But you can tell it's green $20 bills as part of the actual cachet. That
I
they
didn't
had.
know that money could rot.
It's paper.
I
It's
mean-
wet. It's materialistic. I mean, or material, whatever.
You
It
can
would
use it,
disintegrate
you can-
before rotting, though.
But if it's in plastic and you got like any kind of
Moisture or
mildew,
anything.
warm, yeah,
I
it's
mean,
gonna,
it was 9 years before
Sure.
they found it. So I mean, it's in the elements, with snow, whatever. I mean, it's
Yeah.
possible. I don't know. I've never had money
I don't
long
want to
enough
put a
to.
$20 bill.
I try to test that theory, When I have gone before I know it, so.
we try
I'm
to
not going
keep
to test it out within.
I'll use your money to test it, but.
Couldn't have to fight me for it.
No, it is one of the best stories I've ever heard of.
I
It's
love
just fascinating, and everybody seems to know about it or heard of it. It's
I
crazy.
saw it in the '90s when
Yep.
on Unsolved Mysteries, and been hooked ever since, So
That's
I love that show.
Yeah.
I still do. What are you talking about?
I don't have time to watch TV.
Oh, yeah, right, exactly. Well, that was a good discussion. Let's move on to the next fun topic.
pick it.
Lincoln's assassination.
All right.
You say, so what? He got shot. We know the history behind it. Oh, there's so much more that you may or may not have heard of or heard that makes it so much fun. Well, we all know what history has taught us. He was in the Ford Theater watching a play. I can't remember the play. I don't know the name of the play and all that crap. I don't remember off the top of my head. Hey, there he is, Mr. Lincoln himself. If I had a penny every time.
What up, babe?
That's
Sorry.
You're really good.
That's worth like $5, on the joke. Keep going, keep them coming. Anywho, okay, so Mr. Lincoln, he got shot, assassinated in the Ford Theater. Was it the Fox Theater thing about last week? The Ford Theater.
You doing all right?
No. My jokes keep getting worse. By everybody says, James Wilkes Booth. James Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes.
John, goddammit.
John Wilkes Booth.
John Wilkes Booth.
Should we go down and rotate?
Just smack him.
I'll get it when he's there. It is. It's live action. Just kidding. So what? We all know that history. He jumps off the balcony, lands on the stage,
You got a picture of that too.
backs out, runs out the back.
I have a picture of what?
Breaks his leg.
I sent you a
breaks
picture
his
of him
leg.
jumping off. It's just a portrait.
It's a cartoon portrait, probably. That's what
I
I had
sent it to you. No, not that one.
Hey, it's familiar. Same thing.
I already clicked on that one before you said it.
So we all know the history behind that. He shot him point blank range from behind, crept in. There's still more. We haven't got to the conspiracy part yet,
Right.
obviously.
You jumping over something? Is that what you're doing over here?
So anyway,
But one thing, first of all, that really was baffling to start with is they always had a guard, like the Secret Service version of that time, whatever, outside the door every time they went somewhere, and for whatever reason he wasn't there, right?
but yeah,
Pulled off or whatever.
it was about this time when he went to the Ford Theaters when the Secret Service actually was developed. There's supposed to have been a guard standing outside the booth or the seating.
He's messing up now.
Well, I say booth, but it was
Box
booth
seating,
shot.
yeah, I gotcha.
The box seating, where he's supposed to be.
Right.
Well, that night, that guard, who had been a recovering alcoholic, decides to go for a drink, thinking, well, it's just a play, president should be fine. So he leaves. He goes to the bar to have a drink. That's when John Wilkes Booth happens to find the perfect moment. Him being an actor, he he knew the play very well that was happening. He knew when all the laughs were going to happen, where it was going to be silent. He waited outside the seating area, and he was able to see through a hole. He waited till there was a big laugh with the audience, that's when he made his move to jump forward and shoot. He had a knife in one hand, pistol in the other, and that's when he made one shot, jumps over. When he jumps over, his foot gets caught on the draping and the George Washington picture that's there. Trips him up, so when he hits the ground, he injured his leg really bad. That's when he screams out, "Death to tyrants."
Yep.
And then he makes his way out the back, where there's a horse waiting. I mean, it was well thought out and planned at this point for back then.
Yep.
Okay.
End of story. No, it gets better. So we all know, and maybe you don't, that he is on the run with a limp for a while, trying to get away from this, and the story has it they cornered him, found him, and hold on. Go ahead. You want to start? I'll do that part. Good.
Yeah. So he actually goes to the house of Samuel Mudd.
Oh, that's right.
You see that clear daylight picture of the house? That's what it looks like today. Samuel Mudd. It's Dr. Mudd's house. The old saying, you're going to be in trouble as thick as mud, or whatever. That's where the saying came from, because the doctor, not knowing, because back then they didn't have cell phones or anything, instant news of, hey, the president was shot. Booth rides up there with his friend and co-conspirator and gets his leg set, and he stays in the house, sleeps overnight, and is healed. The couch that he laid on is still in the house today. He gets his leg all mended, and then he's put back up. Well, since the doctor helped him, Dr. Mudd was actually arrested and was really close to being one of the ones hung for the incident, even though he had nothing to do with it, but because he helped the criminal.
Did he know prior?
No, he had no idea.
That's
like I said, they didn't have any internet or anything back then in the Old West, so he had no idea. There's a guy who comes riding up and is injured.
Hurt. Hell.
Yeah. So he helps him. But, that didn't stop the, Union soldiers from arresting him and taking him away. But from there, that's when John Wilkes is back on the run. And he's reading newspapers and everything with articles. He's thinking he's going to be this hero for doing it, whereas the nation is pretty much mourning and crying out for him to be arrested for everything. And then they capture him.
They corner him in a barn on a farm and basically try to smoke him out, like the place on fire. He comes out and gets shot. In the story. History in this ties. But wait, there's more.
What?
So, years later, in 1977, a guy by the name of John St. Helen asked for a lawyer friend of his by the name of Finis L. Bates to come to his room. So he comes to his room, he's confessing on his deathbed, and it happened in Granbury, Texas. He tells his lawyer, he says that he is in fact John, not James, Wilkes Booth. He says, I'm the man that got killed in the barn was in April, whatever, 26, 1865 was an imposter. So this is from 65 until 77, we've already died. He says that he is in fact John Wilkes Booth. He tells us an elaborate plan about the whole plot behind it. He says that the Vice President at the time, Andrew Johnson, was the mastermind behind Lincoln's assassination attempt, or not attempt, the actual act, and that he provided a certain password to John St. Helen in order for him to escape the manhunt anytime they were close. You give him this password and whatever, it's whether they can get away. Shortly after that, he was supposed to, in his mind, he was thinking he was going to die that night. Well, he ended up living a little longer, so he left town immediately after the story to Finis L. Bates. who just happened to be the grandfather of one Kathy Bates, the actress that we all know to this day and age. So I thought that was kind of an interesting twist. Regardless, so
Yeah, you got
new
that.
town.
You got that photo of the barn on fire?
Yes.
Also, Dennis Bates in it too. That's something we put if you want to. It's not a big deal. If you don't, it's just a dude, old dude who's now dead at this point. Go ahead, if you're ready. Do you have any more you want to add to that part of the story?
Well,
there's more to it.
Right.
Yeah,
With
it keeps building.
Why?
with
is
the
that one
fire.
That's not ready. We're not ready for that yet.
Nope.
You jumped the gun.
Yep.
Get it?
I have no idea why.
Okay. So anyway, the fire that night when they were stuck in the tobacco barn on the Garrett farm. So when they were in there, it was just Booth and another conspirator that he was riding with. When they lit it on fire, the guy who was riding with Booth comes out, surrenders. But when he comes out, it is said by a few of the witnesses of the Union soldiers there that he comes out saying, "Who is that man inside the barn with me? Who is this man?" He didn't know. The guy that they ultimately shoot, because you can see in this photo, it's just a drawing, but they fire upon Booth and they shoot him, they kill him. They all bring him back out, and he's got reddish hair, freckles, and he doesn't fit the profile at all of John Wells Booth. I mean, everybody knows what John Wells Booth looks like. He's got jet black hair, mustache.
Well, he was actually quite a famous actor
Yes, he
during that
was.
day, wasn't he?
Everybody knew him back then. A lot of people knew him, and they. So there's and then the thing about that is that after they did that, of course, there's the reward money.
Yeah.
The government wants this to be finished and done immediately. They want the bad guy caught and the story ended.
Mm-hmm.
Where's the photograph of his dead body?
Right.
Where's that photograph that everybody would? I mean, you got one of, all the Old West figures. They always post them up, kind of like Billy the Kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where's his dead body?
Right.
They don't have that. There's no photograph of it. They take his body and take it to and hidden away and did the body view and autopsy on a Civil War sub ship. It was an armored ship that they did. Andrew Johnson and all of the Secretary of State, everybody was on there and was able to view. From what I've been told, and what I've been read, and what I've read, not what I've been told, what I've read and watched, one photograph was taken, and Andrew Johnson is the only one who had it. One photograph taken of the body, and that was it. Done and said, and then gone.
Is it because they didn't want to give him the publicity for it, or nobody knows?
Or the idea of it is, if you wrap your head around the idea that they let him go. They wanted Booth to get away. They took the person who's the wrong body and the wrong person, claimed it to be him, and moved on to end it.
And back in that time, they didn't have the Open Records Act and the forensic science that we have now.
Right.
You just
For
have
what
dead
the
body.
Open Records Act is worth, which, in my opinion, isn't a whole lot, but that's just
Yeah.
Well, and that's odd too, because back in those days, they loved to show
The dead body.
Yeah, they loved to show the dead body. They
Dolph
were
Gang,
actually,
Jesse James.
yeah,
all
some of them
you
were
know.
actually so gruesome to even look at. I
Yeah.
mean, they loved showing pictures.
Oh, there was one photograph that they took, all the hangings,
Right.
They took photographs of all of them being hung.
Yep.
And the one guy whose head popped off, they took photographs of him standing there, and his last words was, "Let it rip." And his head ripped right off. And they show his
Wow.
dead body on the ground, and there's the head over here, and there's blood everywhere. They took a photograph of that.
And
Why not John
why not
Wilkes
this
Booth?
one? Yeah, why not?
Like I said, you got this guy named John St. Helen in 1877, years after the fact, claiming to be him, and then disappears for now. Well, then later on in 1903, you have another guy in Oklahoma that they call him a drifter, who goes by the name of David E. George, who decided to off himself in a Enid, Oklahoma hotel by ingesting arsenic. So what? Okay, yeah, big deal. Well, 9 months earlier, he had tried the same feat, tried to kill himself, and he had told, when he thought he was dying, he told the wife of a Methodist minister that he was not David, like Elihu George, that he was the one who, in fact, killed the best man that ever lived. That he was, in fact, J. Wilkes Booth. That's what he says to this person. Okay? The drawing on the board right there at the left is John Wilkes Booth. The one on the right is Mr. David E. George, or whoever he may be. That's, yeah, it's similar. Okay, it's a drawing, so what? It's a drawing, right? Well, the local newspaper showed Mr. George and Mr. Booth side by side, and it was similar, there was resemblance. Well, Mr. Finis L. Bates, who in 1877 was a young lawyer at the time that he went to deathbed, remember, got the confession from him, recognizes this picture right away and says, oh my God, I know exactly who that is. That is not David George, that is John St. Helen. So he makes a beeline to Enid, Oklahoma.
It's crazy.
To talk to this people who have the body. That's Finis L. Bates right there. He went to try to gain control of Mr. George's body, because he is pretty sure that's John St. Helen, like I said. So, but he is at this place called W.P. Pennyman's mortuary and furniture store, and the guy that runs it says, no, I'm not going to give it to you. Because David E. George taken arsenic to kill himself, and they used embalming fluid at that time. They used arsenic also. It created this perfect body, basically. It froze him like a mummy in a way. And he said, nope, you can't have this body. I'm going to display him. So he posed him in a chair, dressed in a suit, reading the newspaper in front of him with the eyes, open glass eyes, and there should be a picture of that too, coming up here.
Wow.
And he put him in the front parlor room window for all to see. This is possibly the man that killed President Lincoln. So the picture should be coming in a minute. And it goes more. It goes on. We're not done yet. This is Tim the Iceberg. We're still going. This is why it's a great conspiracy. So, I think this picture's coming soon. Is that what?
It's deleted.
Really?
Yeah.
You need me to send it to you again?
Oh, wait.
Or?
Now it's here. I don't know why it's doing this. Magic.
Sorry, people, I don't remember. Just slight technical difficulties. We're good for that. It's been a while since we had any, right? So now's the time. So,
It should be up there.
This is the picture of David George, aka possibly John St. Helen, aka John Wilkes Booth, possibly, sitting in this mortuary's front parlor window for anybody who wants to come view with this person.
That's an interesting resemblance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of like John Wilkes Booth.
Got that
striking.
hair and
Yeah. Well, about that time, a few years later, this was 1903 when this happened. 1907, Mr. Finis Bates writes a book called The Escape and Suicide of John Wilkes Booth, written for the correction of history. And shortly after this, he gets access to the body and he gains custody of the body. So what he decides to do is to take this embalmed body around the carnivals for decades after that, stating that this was the mummy of John Wilkes Booth. Go ahead, turn to
nope.
No.
Wait for the picture.
The fun fact is, this mummy they're taking around everywhere starts to cast a dark shadow to anybody who has it, basically, as far as the carnival itself. So basically, anytime they should do a showing of this mummy on the carnival tour, the person shortly after that who owns the actual carnival gets financially, burdened, basically. He loses his carnival. It's like it casts a black shadow over, having this body, even in your carnival, which was crazy enough as it is.
The fact that they're pushing this body around and claiming to be the killer of Abraham Lincoln, and
Who
yet,
should have been dead, mind you, in a barn.
yeah, there's the body.
That's that's the mummy.
That's not creepy.
Yeah.
Oh, it gets creepier.
No.
Yeah.
No, we're not done yet still. Let's keep going.
But yeah, they just would tour this around the country, claiming this is John Wilkes Booth.
Well,
View his body.
yep. So,
What?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
That's what arsenic does to you guys.
Yeah.
You know. So.
I mean, though.
Well,
Where's that picture I'm looking
go ahead.
There we go.
Well, then in 1920, a circus train that's carrying this said mummy, the mummy itself gets kidnapped and it's held for ransom. It's a mummy, right? There's actually veterans who fought for the Union side, threatened to lynch the actual mummy to kill John Wilkes Booth a second time, as they said, but they ended up not doing it. So, however, Bates gets control back of the mummy again, and when he died in 1923, the mummy was sold by his widow to a William Evans, who owned another carnival. And he put it on his carnival for a little while, and eventually after that, he decides to take the mummy, display it on his farm in Idaho, and place a sign that said, outside that says, "Come to the man who murdered Lincoln." So he starts charging admission for people, anybody who wants to come and check this mummy out. That's supposedly John Wilkes Booth. So he does that for a few years, and then in 1930, another man named, actually a husband and wife duo named last name Harkins, bought the mummy for $5,000. They offered $1,000 to anyone who could prove it wasn't James Wilkes Booth. John Wilkes Booth, sorry. I did it again. Sorry. And he claims the whole time he had the mummy, he never paid a cent to anybody. So nobody could disprove that. It was not James Wilkes Booth. John. God damn it. John Wilkes Booth.
I really hope that we don't have a viewer by the name of, like, James Booth or something.
So give me a call.
He's like, I didn't do it.
So anyway, they said he never paid out any cent to anybody that could disprove it. Well, in 1931, a group of doctors, shipped from Chicago, decides to examine the body. They claim that the corpse had the same injuries as John, not James, Wilkes Booth. He had a fractured leg, a broken thumb, and a neck scar that matched Mr. Booth himself. But one thing I read is that the only thing that was that Booth broke his left leg during that jump from the top to the stage.
Right.
This corpse would reportedly had a broken right leg, but it's not really documented or disproved. So, was it him? Was it not him? Who knows? I mean, as to the conspiracy itself, it's just a fascinating story that you never know. And we're not done yet. Yep. So, lastly, beginning in the 30s, 1937, 1950, the mummy was part of another circus. And last time they was seen in public was 1970. Some family members of everybody involved, including the Wilkes Booth family, wanted to dig up, exhume the body of whoever's in John Wilkes Booth's actual grave. They want to exhume that up, just to test for DNA. But for some reason, courts have vetoed that every time and said, "No, you will not dig up that body."
Oh yeah, so it'll prove that the government did something shady.
Possibly.
Or it may not be him. Yeah.
Possibly, but
there's just so much mystery surrounding that. Yes, sir.
Well, technically, if they were facing him, because if he jumped on the stage,
Right.
Wouldn't they, because they're sitting this way, the stage here, wouldn't they be looking at his left leg, but he had a broken right leg?
No, he broke his left leg,
Well,
according
here's
to
the
reports.
There
The doctor
would-
that reset him.
There wouldn't have been chairs facing where he jumped off. They would have been facing the stage,
Yeah.
and he would have jumped from behind them.
Yes.
So they wouldn't have been, unless they were turning around, they would have been facing him.
But the doctor who said it also said what leg he said too.
He said his left leg reported in history, and
Maybe he's dyslexic.
the doctors basically disproved it by saying that it was his right leg. According to this corpse mummy that had a broken right leg. So.
What do you got over there?
Okay, so can we go back to the first death portrait of the guy sitting in the chair, and then the also the mummy with the gray hair.
One side by side.
If you can do that, that would be awesome. If not, one after the other. Start with the death portrait.
We're both up there.
Okay, cool. So, Roth brought up an interesting question about the mummies. And it may just be lighting, I don't know, but the mummy appears to have gray hair, where the death portrait, the hair is still dark.
Right.
Doesn't that change over time? As decades go by.
Okay, so this was just a quick Google search, so I mean there'd need to be a lot more research on it. But according to what Rose just found, hair will maintain its color until it's actually separated from the body.
Well, but it's also a living thing. It's always still growing. Fingernails are still growing even after.
What about arsenic? What about the poison that's in his body? Would that have done anything to?
But the hair is not connected to the circulatory system, so it wouldn't have.
Well, isn't it your nose hair that keeps growing after you die?
Actually, that's a myth. Hair doesn't keep growing after you die. It's the dehydration process in the skin. Your skin shrinks up, which makes the hair follicles protrude, which makes it look like the hair is continuing to grow.
Right.
In two different searches here by doctors, and I can't, I mean, you never know on Google if it's real or not. It says that it states that it will only change after it is fallen off. But maybe over the years they changed it to.
Who's to say they didn't do anything to the body?
Well, your hair is black and white, right?
There's also, I mean, it could be UV damage, it could be sun bleached. There's a lot of other things that go in, but that's kind of an interesting point.
There's a picture on the left is when this person, David George, actually passed away shortly after he did his act, so the one on the right was years later. I don't know.
Yeah, do you know offhand, that's what I was actually fixing to ask, do you know offhand what kind of time frame we're looking at between the two?
Well, I mean, you think he died in 1903 or whatever it was, and
that's all the way
staying up to the 1970s, and the last known picture of the last known viewing of this mummy was last seen in the 70s. I mean, you're talking 60-some years. Hey, there it is, 60 years.
At 67 years.
So I got a question for you. You guys
I was
have been
thinking
there.
of this.
You guys have been there several times, and I just thought I'd throw this out there. Okay, when we go to Wilson, it's that place that we go visit every once in a great while, and his wife is still in that. Can you guys remember if the hair color is still the same?
I never seen it.
His hair's same. He had white hair when he was still alive. So it's still white hair.
I was kind of
today.
wondering if I could remember.
Can we also talk about that one eyes are open and one of the eyes are closed on the other?
Yeah.
Well, they're glass eyes, regardless.
Well, yeah, but after
I'm sure they've done stuff to it to keep it looking.
Well, I mean, think about it. It probably.
I mean, it's teeth are missing too,
it
and
sinks
stuff like
your
that.
eyes.
Look at the difference in the condition of the skin on his chest versus his face. I mean,
they've done stuff.
Wrinkly versus nice and taut. So,
I mean, it was going around a circus. I'm sure they were doing.
Yeah.
What he said?
Interesting.
Could have been dropped. All kinds of things.
Well, I mean, it was kidnapped at one time, so I mean, who knows what was done to it?
And it hasn't been seen since the 1970s.
That's the last reported public viewing. They think the body right now is in the hands of a collector, possibly. And nobody's come forward and said,
Why would
the
you
body right
collect
here.
that stuff?
Sean goes with it. Do what?
So why would you collect?
Oh,
This is
where
my
do you
money.
get it from? But it's just a fascinating twist of events that never taught history, of course. Go figure. But who's to say it's right or wrong? I don't know. Without there even being any physical tests done on whoever's in John Wilkes' booth.
Is that right? Another fascinating story about John St. Helen is when he, still a younger guy, got married, and he happened to tell his wife while they were married that his name wasn't John St. Helen.
Right.
Pissed her off, but it wasn't for the fact that of who he really was when he said the real name. Is the fact that she got married to a false name. So she marched him back to the courts to get married again and to sign his real name. And on the signature, it's John Wilkes Booth.
Wow. Be married to somebody that's going to redo this.
I'd much rather be
and
married
there's
to the
other one.
assassin than the liar.
But that's what happened. That's what she did.
That is a good point.
They can even see the photograph or the photograph of the signature in the books.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. So.
And no one picked up on that
Oh yeah.
at the time.
Sometimes if it's. Who knows?
Well, they use names, I mean,
I think
But
he
they
signed
thought
it
the guy
John
was
W.
dead.
Booth.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, they thought he was dead. So
There's
everybody-
another man
yeah.
by that name.
Oh,
Who
yeah.
knows? You can't just call the police. Hey, check into him. I think
Yeah.
that's
Like, especially since it's government official and he's dead.
yeah. It's all worldwide, and John Wilkes Booth is dead.
So is James.
So is James.
That's very sad.
But he keeps coming alive tonight.
Obviously, he wants to be heard.
But so anyway,
Yeah.
it's a good mystery. It's a good story.
Your sister liked the joke.
What's next?
You want to hear Max's dumb joke?
Yeah, we might as well. He won't be right if we don't.
I put it on the internet. It's on the
Max had
internet forever.
asked people at home if the home that Abe Lincoln was living in, born in, whatever, died in, I don't care, is the original log cabin, if it's made out of Lincoln logs. You thought my joke was bad. Boo. Anywho.
Anyway, the silence. Silence.
I typed it. I didn't say it.
Can we nix his ability to do that?
Possible.
Yeah, let me just go ahead and click the stop streaming.
Okay,
button.
let's move on. Yeah, let's move on.
The next conspiracy we're talking about is the moon landing.
Don't piss off the producer.
Because on it? Cut off?
No.
Anywho,
Let's go to the
moon
moon landing.
landing, was it faked?
Yes.
Fake.
It looked real to me. I was there.
Were you
I
there
saw
on the
it.
moon?
No, I watched it on TV.
I wasn't.
I watched it. It was real to me.
So, the first picture, we're going to go down this list right here. This is the first picture.
Why shouldn't there be a shadow?
But it's not the shadow we're doing with this yet. It's
Okay.
the actual
Alright.
flag. People are,
Yeah, let's like just dive into it.
conspiracy theorists say, first of all, the whole thing behind it is those who believe that the moon landing never happened, said it was produced in a movie studio for various different reasons.
Stanley Kubrick was the one
Yes.
who did it. Of course, he would have been known to have talked about it.
Right.
You know.
Right. With that in mind, that first one says the flag appears to be waiting in the air, which, if you all know, the moon has zero air, zero gravity, all that stuff.
But you
All
watch
right,
the
here comes
video,
Jason.
but you watch the video and it's not moving.
Right.
Watch the videos.
Yep. And the reason they say it looks like it's moving is because it was just set down in place by the astronaut, and of course, as we all know, physics, inertia moved it to where it's straightened out. So you see another picture of the moon, of the flag, it's straight as an arrow, basically, or straight, that is. It's straight out. So they think because this is flapping in this picture, according to conspiracy theorists, that this is in a studio, there's a breeze coming in from one of the doors or something from the studio, blah, blah, blah. I've heard it all. It is what it is. It's just, you put it down, and it finally straightened out after that. I mean, they talked about it.
Okay, so I'm not a big fan of government and all that, but
Now we're definitely getting shut off.
this is
Can you mute his mic?
this
I'm
is
just kidding.
this is NASA we're talking
Of course.
about. I don't think they would have overlooked that kind of a detail if they were
Right.
really
Oh,
trying to pull off
I'll
this
talk about that.
fake of a lifetime.
We'll talk about that here in a minute.
I will make notice though, and I'm
Right.
just going to throw this out there, that a lot of the people who don't believe in a moon landing are also the people who still think the Earth is flat.
But they're gonna tell me they're Trump
So,
supporters.
you know, I'm just going to, no. Just, let's move on. Let's move on. I'm just throwing it out there because it is true that there's so
Not
many
even a
people.
Trump supporter, doesn't believe the world is flat. Moon landing was faked.
Okay,
Do you
let's
think
move
it's
on.
fake, or do you really think it's fake?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Well, tell me why if we go to the next pictures.
The same thing that you said about the wind force when it comes to the flag. The fact that the multiple pictures, some show stars, some
Oh,
don't.
we didn't do that.
Well, you asked me why.
No, I didn't know why. Keep going. I'm trying to know why. I've never met anybody who, personally, me, I've never met personally that I know of.
I mean, the stories that I've read about it being filmed in a
Mhm.
certain location, people who have, after the fact, been like, okay, I'm really going to tell you the truth. I was there, I was on the crew team or whatever.
Right.
I don't think that he's never been on the moon. What I think is when it was televised that he was there, it did not happen.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, each your own. I've never even talked to anybody and had a conversation with them. I'm glad that you do feel that way, because I'd love to debate this, and that's good. You go to the next picture. It's the one with the visor down.
Yeah, I'm trying
you have
to
them,
pull it up.
you see them in order? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, it's in order.
Okay. So coming up will be a picture of Neil Armstrong from his. You'll see it's a close-up kind of.
It should already. Oh, there it goes.
Oh, there it is. So you look at his visor. It says only 2 astronauts walk on the moon at a time. But yet in Neil Armstrong's visor, you can see both astronauts in view. But they want to know who took the picture then.
Watch it.
Yeah. Well, so they want to know somebody else had to take the picture, so it has to be faked.
Yes, so
There's
Selfie
a reflection right
Yeah.
there. Someone's standing right there.
Well, that's what the astronaut. What they're saying is they know this for a fact, and there's pictures of this later on, videos of this. We'll show here in a little bit. That all the astronauts had video cameras on their chest. So you can see it on the actual shield itself, the visor. You can see Armstrong's shadow of him pushing the camera. His right elbow is extended, well, right to the picture frame. It's probably his left, actually, if you think about it, it's reversed. And the other astronaut. So you see him himself and the other astronaut, whoever it was at the time, might have been Buzz Aldrin. He was the second one on the planet with him. So there's only 2 astronauts. People want to say it's, oh no, it's 3 people there, so we had to take the picture.
No, they had the video. They were able to do kind of like what you see today with selfie sticks.
Yeah, that's exactly the same.
Because you can go to the Cosmosphere and see the same things
Where's it
in the
connected?
exhibits.
It's on his chest. There's a video later on showing him, but
Okay, but you're looking at his chest right now.
right, it's
Where
long.
is it connected?
It's
Well, then
long.
why is he holding his arm up like this?
It's long. It
That's
kicks
what
out
I
from his
say.
body like this long.
You go to the Cosmosphere and see it for yourself in Hutchinson. They have
Okay, I see
all
what-
the
I
video
see what you're
cameras.
saying.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying. You think you would see the full camera, or field
No,
view.
not even the like. You
The
would see
camera.
where it would be connected to
Right.
his chest because he's pulling it out.
Yeah.
It would still.
Well, no,
be,
it's not. Well, now it's this long. It's into his body long. It's like think about the time. This is 1969 when this happened. The cameras are gigantic, right? It's not like a little selfie camera. It's a gigantic camera. We'll show a video of it later on. There's a picture of it too. But they're thinking, okay, they have NASA. Of course, NASA has an explanation for everything. It's like the government would too. They're saying no, that it's his own camera.
I hope they have explanations. I mean, they're the ones who did it.
Right. Well, no.
But you know.
But I mean, they would want to fight down any kind of conspiracy theory behind it. So we can move on. Then this video said anything else to add to that one.
Guys.
Yep.
You're very
Sorry,
excited.
we're doing some
Reconnaissance?
we're doing some investigating here.
Reconnaissance?
We're not gonna wait.
I know.
See, there's one right
Yeah.
there.
I don't know.
Huh, interesting.
Okay, so if you go to picture number 3, then this is what Max was talking about. There's no stars in the background, therefore
Right here.
the planet had to be done in a movie studio of some sort. Yeah, the third picture. Is it just coming? Oh, that's you're looking at me like.
No, it's on there, isn't it?
No, there's no. Mine's behind there.
Oh.
Behind
That's why I was like, wait a second. Is that on
So
it?
they're saying, well, where is the star? You know, it's a starry night. It's in the middle of the sky. You know, there's nothing obstructing the view. Where is the star that you should be seeing in the backdrop? Anybody want to weigh in on that? Why there is stars?
Well, I mean, okay, so the moon's surface isn't flat. There's craters everywhere.
Right.
What we're looking right there is a shadow of a crater or something. I mean, I don't know, but
Right.
there's.
If they were
I
gonna
don't-
make it, they would put the
For
stars.
the record, I'm actually on the fence about the moon landing.
No, that's fine.
I
Yeah.
can see things both ways, but it's, so I bounce back and forth and play the devil advocate from
No,
both
that's great.
sides.
Remember when I first talked about conspiracy theories in the very beginning? There's facts that back some of these things, these claims that people that 100% believe in it think, oh, you guys are wackos, whatever, But when I said it earlier, I was like, it starts to make you wonder and you question everything you've ever learned. I mean, who knew about John Wilkes or James Wilkes Booth? The mummy and the whole. I never knew about that. So Jason and I started talking about it one day, and we were just having to be shooting the shit like we always do.
Right.
Well, this is what NASA said as far as why there's no stars.
No.
Oh, okay. Why there's no stars in the background? Well, the moon's surface reflects sunlight, and so the glare would have made the view of the stars unviewable. Due to the fast exposure settings on the camera they were taking, this wouldn't allow for stars to even show up on camera. They were taking pictures between 1 and 1/50th or 1 and 250th frames per second. So I mean, it's fast shutter. So you wouldn't get necessarily.
I can use my smartphone here and take a photograph on a starry night and see no stars whatsoever.
Right.
But am I on a flat, non-Earth place because there's no stars? Am I somewhere else?
Right.
No.
Yeah. So I mean,
I'm
some
right
of the
here,
stuff
I'm
you
seeing
can
it.
prove and disprove. I mean,
No, you're right.
Yeah.
Then why does other pictures show them?
Maybe it's the flash, like you're saying.
There's more to that.
Go ahead.
The other content of the picture.
Yeah. You gotta also remember how they're broadcasting it. They're broadcasting from one satellite to another, to another, to another satellite, all across to where it went to Earth in NASA, to finally broadcasting it out to other people on their channels. It distorts everything as well.
It would be interesting to see in this day and age if they went back and did it all over again.
Yeah.
In this day and age, with high def and 4K, whatever, it would be able to
Oh, we're
just
supposedly
see
going
that.
back.
They would be able to see that. I mean, the stars in the background. Versus back then when they had Technicolor and all that crap, you know, black and white, whatever it was, that wasn't not high quality video. I mean, who knows? For all I know, they were using Polaroid. For all I know, that company doesn't exist anymore. Who knows? I mean, stuff like that makes you wonder. But no, that's one thing I've never noticed in growing up. Why wasn't there any stars in the backdrop? I mean, until I started reading more into it and more recently.
But there's not always stars.
Well, that night they know. Well, supposedly there's stars in the sky, but.
Yeah, but I mean,
There would
the
be.
thing about it is, from the moon, there will always be stars in the sky.
There's no atmosphere to cloud it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't have cloud, you don't have
But
seasons.
being
you don't
how
have-
bright it is out
Yeah.
there, you know, I mean, they had the sun and everything else, and you know, bouncing off the Earth from the sun
Yeah.
and everything that hitting the surface, it's going to be very bright,
Yeah, there's more.
and that
in a minute.
will reflect and cause issues with the same.
Well, I mean, yeah, you
It's
see
just
it
beyond.
here in the cities
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, think about it when you're in the city and you can really see stars out right here. You look, if you go out in the middle of the country, it's nothing obstruction. You can see supposedly more stars. So why can't you do it in this picture? If there's nothing obstructing your view, if it's just
Okay. Where they're at right now, this is basically the equivalent of daytime.
Right.
Now, granted, you don't have the atmosphere that's splitting the visible light down into, you know, blue sky, but
Sure.
this is still daylight.
Right.
And I mean, I can.
No,
I don't know.
What if they were to happen to go and cross over to the dark side of the moon, and we're able to see more of space beyond?
Yeah.
Right.
Like Pink Floyd show.
Exactly. Right.
But-
But
Boo, yeah.
no,
Bad joke
seriously,
number-
once
There
you
is
go
no
past
possibility
into
of
that,
fall.
because because they lose, even going into that side of the moon, they even lose frequency.
Yeah.
Like
That's
Apollo
what they
13, when
experiment.
they had to go around to shoot around the moon.
Yeah, well,
they lost,
I mean,
they lost
there's
everything.
no line of sight.
Yeah,
So-
they lose everything, and everything beyond them became more visible for them.
For an astronaut, they say that's one of the scariest things is because you
Yeah.
lose, like you said, communication from
Yeah.
set point to set, you know, A to B until you get back into
Yeah.
the right atmosphere.
Yeah, until you regain
the
line of
astronauts
sight.
in Apollo 13, when they were flying around, they saw the beauty of what, you know, going behind the moon where the sun couldn't hit them. They could see the space. They could see everything perfectly. You know, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
But I mean, that's a great one of those things you can argue for days. So if you go to number 4, which is a picture of the Eagle lunar module itself landing on the moon, well, it already has landed. The Eagle has landed, as the saying goes. There are people always want to say upon impact they should have created this big, gigantic, huge crater, and you know there should have been dust everywhere, all kinds of shenanigans. And you can see in the picture that nothing looks disturbed at all, other than the fact it's just sitting in place.
okay. Can I jump on that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So they're actually piloting that, and they actually have engines to it where they actually were slowing down. Because if it's made to the point, it's very fragile, because it has to be as light as it can be to be able to travel and go that far. If they were to just drop it, you know, you could have broken the leg of the module. You could have done anything like that. So no, They had, if you even watch the video of it, you see the engines kicking on and trying to level it out and shorten the speed, slow the speed down until they actually landed on it.
And
that's what they piloted. That's what they were trained to do.
And that's what NASA's answer was. Is that
I do know that, and this was from research I did from actually a research paper back in high school, that when they first went to when they first started the moon landing program, whatever, I can't remember. I'm kind of
fine.
Let me gather my thoughts. Okay, so anyway, when they were first engineering the lunar landers, they expected the loose dirt and the loose dust on the moon to be very, very thick.
Right.
They expected, and that's why the feet on the landers landing.
No, you're fine.
The legs there.
Yes, the pad.
Right.
That's why they're so large to distribute the weight of it over a larger area.
Right.
But not only that, well, then they found out that surface dirt wasn't as loose.
It was only
you know,
so much. Even when you stepped into it, it was only so much.
So then, I mean, there's that to consider with the. What am I trying to say?
No idea.
Back to you, Bob.
Well, you would, because you didn't.
No,
but
the lack of atmosphere to suspend any dust, the lack of gravity.
Right. It's a.
I mean, there's
the moon surface has a vacuum effect where it's airless, so anything you hit, it's not going to go anywhere. That's why there's no gravity. It's just going to sit there. So anything that disturbs it, it's going to. If they were to pick that up and move it off there, you're going to see the hole still intact where they landed. It's not a big crater. It's just the pads themselves are going to leave an indentation, perfect, pristine. Even after all these years, it hasn't moved. So I mean, it is what it is. I think Leo had a question. Go ahead.
Well, you know, like, because wouldn't, if it's like just a small layer, and if they kicked it up, wouldn't it have to be like because it has no gravity, you know? Well, on Earth it has gravity. Wouldn't it on the moon? Wouldn't it, if it had like a little layer of dust, wouldn't it already be kicked up because it has no gravity?
Well, there's no air though. There's no air movement. So if they were to swipe their hand through it, it's just going to leave a long trail. It's not going to flap in the air and particles going to go flying everywhere. It's just going to go.
And it's not that the moon doesn't have any gravity. It's just that the gravity is very thin compared to what we get here on Earth.
It's not as dense as the Earth. Yeah, there's not a gravitational pull. The moon itself is pulled in the Earth's gravity versus the Earth itself having gravity to pull it to the middle. So it doesn't really kick up stuff.
Well, and also, wouldn't it, because of, if you filmed it, like I guess, wouldn't it, because you're not just going to get a place that has areas that have just circles, like if you have like a stage, you know?
Right.
Why would it would, because it'd have to be, because it wouldn't have just like dents in the middle of the stage.
Well, the thing is, the Earth at this point, this is the first time anybody's ever really been there. So this was undisturbed surface. It was like pristine, clear, whatever. There was nothing that messed it, other than the fact they landed in when they walked around. Jason actually answered the question too, why there was no big crater and all that stuff. Before they landed, they had the engines throttled, and they kind of gracefully put the lunar module down. They also said it didn't hover long enough to form a crater or kick up dust, because they just basically came down slow and then landed.
Because they actually were coming down when they actually noticed that they were going to land into a different crater, or into a crater, and they had to ditch that plan and move it over and lay it down next to where they were supposedly supposed to land.
So which ways were the engines facing?
Well,
Down.
Right.
Yeah.
So any exhaust
it's
or
out.
anything?
They had that. They had down.
Right. So any sort of force coming out of those engines
They're
Well,
not
because-
powerful
wait,
engines.
they're not like you see in Hollywood,
Yeah,
where
they
they're
wouldn't-
big
but they
rocket
would've
fuel
caused
fire
an-
thing.
yeah,
It's just
environment that
thrusters.
has no disturbance.
Right.
It would have caused a disturbance because
I think it take you to Cosmosphere to show you what the actual modules were. They have replicas.
I'm from Florida. I've been to Kennedy Space
Oh, yeah.
Center.
Okay.
I know what they
I'm
look
saying.
like.
Well, you were asking like what type of engine they had. and where
No,
they
I'm
were
saying that
placed.
if they would have had any disturbance that could have changed their velocity, it would have had to go straight down into where they landed, which would have kicked up dust.
But if you see the actual video footage, it doesn't do like a huge.
No,
Thump, right?
I'm not
It just
talking
goes
about
like
it landing.
it's
I'm
land.
talking about the actual velocity coming out of the engine. It's going.
Right.
It would have had to slow it down.
Very true.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this, what about, okay, so Jeremiah made a big point, okay? We're, what, 200 plus pounds?
Yes.
Okay, so your weight is what, 37 pounds?
Yeah, I just put it
You
into
see
the
it.
calculator, and
That
according
could
to
make
that,
a difference,
I would
maybe?
weigh like 37 pounds on the moon. Now,
Correct.
granted, that would, any dust that was kicked out would
You see it on video.
would go further because it has the lack of weight,
Mhm.
but the lack of atmosphere is going to make it settle.
Mhm.
Because you see it when they're landing. You see all the debris flying. You see it, and then they land. You can. I mean, have you not seen the video?
There'll be a video coming.
Okay. I'm
too,
just
later
saying.
on. At the end, we'll show
Because
the
you
video.
can see it.
So the actual.
I don't know what impact you're talking about though. Like,
But like Jeremiah just said, the weight on Earth, how much does that Eagle lunar module weigh? Probably pretty hefty, you know,
Right.
because of Earth's gravity and all that other stuff. But on the moon, it's gonna weigh.
Yeah, I'm not talking about the weight of the actual module.
Well, I'm just saying the same thing. You should have kicked up. Well, you're talking about the engine thrust. I get that.
Right.
But
It
they're
would
saying
have
that
caused it to disperse.
they're saying that it wasn't on long enough to create all the dust like you see. But also again, it's not like they said in Hollywood where they had this big, powerful gust of everything, and it lands real hard, and you know that kind
They
of.
were just like this.
Yeah. And you know what? And actually, you're not too far off.
Yeah, is that all it
If you watch, if you watch the actual like the space shuttle, that's what they do when they move.
Yes.
Let's just float in there, and it's just
Yeah,
it's just-
because there's
it's
no
just like
weight,
a little.
there's really
yeah,
wouldn't
they
take
just
much.
they,
It's
they
like a
just
can of
go.
air.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
just
mean-
that's all they're doing. They're just going
Right.
and it's not that powerful that you're thinking of
Right.
because there doesn't take much to move.
But
in
remember, it's
space.
just opinions, guys. It's
Yes.
just opinions.
But this
It's
is
just
common knowledge. If you
It may be
anything
common
in
knowledge
NASA.
to other people, but not.
But this is fake. Remember that.
It's, no.
No, wait,
This
wait,
is
wait.
why we
Because
talk.
you
You
can't,
cannot have
you
an
can't-
opinion. You
You
cannot
guys
have an
cannot
opinion.
sit here doing what we do and believing what we believe, and all those other people that tell us that we're full of shit and that ghosts aren't real. You can't have that strong of an opinion that somebody should not have that opinion.
I'm talking about what I do know of what the technology is of what we have.
Okay, but all of the research that I've done, I've come up with a different conclusion.
And you're entitled to that.
Exactly.
I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. I'm just here to present what people may or may not believe.
It's just an opinion. You
Yeah.
say, yeah, okay.
I'm saying, Jason, you're right.
I'm not. I'm just trying to.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
You just get so passionate.
Yeah.
It's like
Everybody's-
almost too passionate. Like it
All
just don't get upset because somebody has an
You're
opinion.
entitled to your opinion too. This is why we're
Stanley
talking about this.
Kubrick was filming it the whole
This is
time.
this is
Is
why
what the
we're talking
story
about
is.
this because it's a conspiracy theory that may or may not have happened. I mean, we don't know. I mean,
You don't know?
unless you were there,
The director of The Shining was behind it.
I'm not buying into all that.
That's the main story.
I've heard that too.
That's the main story.
I've heard he was. Yeah, I've heard the whole
They
back.
hired just at the time.
Let's go to number 5. How's that? That's a good picture
Why?
to talk about. Number 5 with Mr. Buzz Aldrin himself. It's going to create more of a problem here in a minute with stirring and talking and yelling and fighting and biting. And I'm kidding. So you see Buzz Aldrin there coming down the steps. His knees are bent. You see the shadow of the lunar module casting a nice little shadow. The big problem everybody has is a couple of different things. The shadows, everybody says, is they're a little odd, they say. Okay, there's this big shadow. Obviously, the big lunar module itself is creating such a big overcast shadow. Then why in the hell can you see Buzz Aldrin so clean and clear, and his legs and his boots, for that matter, and he's standing in the shadow practically, ready to jump up the stairs? They say this is proof that there's alternate lighting, that it could have been studio lighting that's, you know, cast when you go into like a dark room for making movies, whatever. You have the spotlight, whatever. You have this movie lights that.
Yeah, this
is
is actually
focusing on
not
him.
one of the theories that
No, I know, but you were asking about lighting earlier and stuff like that, and Jason kind of touched upon it too. But no, you
No, but I'm saying
don't
this
buy into
one-
that, or you do?
No, I don't agree with the conspiracy
Yeah,
theory
that's
on
fine.
that one.
Good.
Because obviously, if you're going to be filming and it's there's going to be a shadow, you're going to have an alternate lighting, whether it's in a studio or if we're outside right now.
Yeah. Well, NASA gave a laundry list of reasons why you can see Mr. Buzz Aldrin, even though he's standing in the shadow. They say there is just, it is what it is, multiple light sources. You have the sun. Jeremiah talked about earlier, it was during the day. You have the sun casting off light. You have the Earth's reflected light being given off. You have light reflecting off the actual lunar module itself. You have their spaceships giving off light. You have reflecting light, that is. You also have the lunar surface, which they said was reflective, which also gave point reason why you couldn't see the stars, because it's a reflective moon surface. You have all these light things, and there's nothing obstructing this light, natural light, mind you, except for the lunar module itself blocking, casting off its own shadow. But you still have other light retreating from every angle that's, showing up in. I mean, it's giving off light, giving off heat, whatever you want to call it. You can still see them. Anybody have any?
Do they have
thoughts on
another
that?
picture of this one with the whole thing?
I don't know. Remember, this is taken from.
Something
No,
I've noticed
also-
on a lot of the pictures, and Jeremiah kind of, it makes sense. A lot of the objects that you see, they have shadows going both directions.
Of course, yeah.
That's another
And
picture
yeah,
coming up.
there's stuff up
Is
there.
is
Yeah.
that because of the different lights?
Well,
and
you gotta
maybe the
think.
lights on the actual.
Think about it. Is the moon surface, is the Earth flat? Is the moon flat? I mean,
No,
this
it's
is a serious question.
According to Jason, no.
Okay, so you're going outside.
I would say no.
Everything you know. I mean, if you drive down the street, is there any hills? Is there anything like that? I mean, things of that nature, right?
Right.
If you were to shine a light on something, even in this room, and we're on a flat table, except for that side, kind of, I'm getting camera there.
Well, that one's more reflective.
Yeah, if I shine a light right here on in the darkness in my computer, there's gonna be shadows going that way, right? If it hits this, it's probably gonna go this way, right? Possibly. I'm just throwing up. And anything behind us can give off shadows going that way, where Max and them are sitting behind the camera. I mean, they're gonna give different angles of shadows everywhere in this room, possibly. Well, that's what NASA's saying in some of these Earth craters. You're getting light from the sun shining down on this.
In multiple.
And you're gonna have rocks, and there's pictures of the rocks. Well, why is this rock going this way, and then why is he going, the astronaut's going that way? Well, because this is the positioning of, probably the camera, also the positioning of the light source. I mean, it's all these different
Secondary light
factors. I mean,
sources.
it's stuff like that you gotta take into consideration.
Right.
But, go ahead.
Why? Why would they make something say? Why?
And we
would-
can go, by the way, we can go along. Our 9 o'clock cutoff time is our own doing. We can talk till 1 o'clock in the morning if we want to. So
Okay.
keep
Why
going.
would they fake it? It's something that's so easily disproved.
Some stuff to say.
I mean, why make?
I have no
They
idea.
make fools out of
It
themselves.
was during the time when we were trying to beat the other countries in
Right.
Russia,
Yep.
But still-
to be the ones to be the first ones to do
Right.
something.
You're the
like that.
Chinese
And I
trying to go
understand
first.
that.
The Russians trying to go first. We were trying to be the
What's that?
And I
first.
understand
What's that
but-
magazine that is famous for crazy stuff?
Fox News? No, I'm kidding. Sorry.
Said magazine,
Yes,
sir.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Magazine.
National Enquirer.
Yes.
Where my
Enquirer.
baby is half lizard.
Yeah. Those are so fun.
That's a different one for another episode, by the way.
But I'm saying she's asking why would they?
Yeah.
Why does
Wouldn't
any
you?
of the things that are
Oh,
fake?
okay, but you're talking about something that is so easily disproved.
National property.
But evidently not.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's what I'm
'cause, I
trying
mean,
to
But
say.
if we'll, be- if I,
I mean,
No, she's talking about National Enquirer and stuff like that. It's
Oh,
easily
yeah.
disproved and stuff like that. It's not really.
But okay, one of the issues they had is some UFO landing in the back of a guy's farm. Is that easily disproved? Why?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Yeah, possibly not. I mean,
I mean, exactly. It's a possibility.
Everything's a possibility.
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
True.
think of all the things that the government has fed us to in the past to boost that American ego. Yeah, and I don't on
Hey,
one
so that-
side of the
yeah,
fence.
I can't hear you.
Point in
Say that,
time.
wait, say it before you answer.
Yeah.
Say that a little louder, we can hear
I
you
said,
here.
think of all the things that the government has fed the public to boost the national ego.
Yeah.
But this
okay.
would be
That's
too
right.
far out there. I think it's
I
way too far
disagree.
out.
I disagree with that part because
Go ahead.
at that specific, I'm going to take what you said one step further. At the point in time that this happened, with all of the space race and the Cold War and all of that stuff, to not be the first ones on the moon would have devastated
Right.
They
the
did
American.
They did beat us to space.
Yeah.
Sputnik.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we were fighting communism. We were in the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
We,
Yeah.
You know, take your eye off of that. And look at this. I mean,
So it would have been
Which is
absolutely
proven to happen
devastating to the U.S. morale.
But the other countries could have tracked the ships and everything going up there.
Why haven't other countries done it? There's such a question too. They have the technology to do it. I mean,
You're absolutely
Russia
right.
has their own space station up there.
Yeah.
They could easily zone in and see what we've done up there.
Right.
I mean, the equipment's left up there.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, you're right.
All right.
Okay.
Go. To answer your question, Michelle, there's reasons against that as to why they could have faked it, but it isn't the truth. We know it's not me.
Well, personally, I just don't think the government would, and I'm not pro-government all the time, but I think it's just too big of a hoax.
Right.
I think it's just way too big of a hoax.
What you say?
Yeah, please. This
No,
is
I just the statement she made is I'm not pro-government all the time anyway. But why would the government do this? Like we've seen, not in this exact situation. We've seen. Well, why would the government do that? And we know they did it. You know what I mean? So that statement is like almost ironic to me.
Which one? What are you talking about? Which?
But I'm not pro-government all the time anyway.
No,
but
but
why would they?
what are your examples that you're saying that the government has given it? Roswell, maybe?
Okay, you can go with Roswell. You can go with, whatever's going on in the politics nowadays. Why would the government do this? I mean, there's so many to go through. I mean, I can definitely
that's totally different. Why the government acts the way it does now.
But with that thinking in mind, why wouldn't they or couldn't they? I mean, why wouldn't they try to fake this because of the fact that we're trying to stay ahead of the country that wants to take us out?
But it can be disproved.
I'm not either one of the sides. The argument.
Yeah,
I'm not
just
pointing at you because the other person I know in the room
No.
feels that way, which is great. I'm glad. I'm 100% glad that you do that. I've never talked to anybody who hasn't. I love it. So we're talking afterwards when it's time. Trust me, we're gonna have. I won't invite him because then I'm just giving you shit, Jason. You know we have these conversations all the time. All right, so let's move on to number 6. This was fun.
Number what?
6.
We got like 50 of them. I'm just kidding.
We got pretty much okay. This is Mr. Buzz Aldrin's footprint, and it appears to be perfect and pristine in the moon's surface. That people who swear that this was baked in a studio looks more like if it's in mud versus a dry planet. There's no water on there on the Earth and the moon. I know, but people say this looks too pristine to be, there's no way. It looks like more like it's in mud. Blah blah blah. That kind of a thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't buy that one. Have you ever walked in dry sill?
Yeah.
Seen the footprints left in dry sill?
Right.
There's none, are
But does that?
Oh yeah, there are.
Yeah,
there are.
No, there are.
Yeah.
It looks just like that.
Yeah.
It looks just like that.
Just like that.
they? It's okay, Chase. Just people have an opinion.
But you're saying, well, there is no.
So should I just be quiet? So I
No,
don't
I'll be
say you?
quiet because I just keep
You
I
can't be
don't want you to be
quiet.
quiet, but I feel like you're ready to beat me up over here for my opinion.
No, this is why we've had this talk, so people at home can weigh in on their thoughts and get angry at us.
No, I guess
or
what
vice
I
versa.
took on his was like light sand.
Right.
Okay, I've been to the beach and I go walk
That's what
on
I'm
light
saying.
sand.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
I know,
saying.
but I'm saying that's what I took from him being light,
Right.
like real powdery. So
It is.
it doesn't leave an indentation like that. It just kind of moves.
But I was agreeing with him when I said
Right.
it looks just like
So
that. He was
now
saying that.
you guys
I
are
wasn't
saying
pointing
that
against
it's
you.
more thick.
What I'm talking about when I talk about dry silk, I'm talking about like the stuff you go pick up off of a lake bottom, like
Okay.
and not sand.
Okay. See, that's
And
what I
then
took. like
set it
light.
out, let it dry, and then see what happens when you step on it. It'll leave a very distinct footprint.
Well, even in the stuff we walk around in, maybe upstairs, the dust up there, we walk on it, do we leave an imprint of our shoes?
Yes, but if it would, to me, I'm thinking maybe if there was more like that, it may not. It may be more of
It
like
may
a
give you
throw.
a more defined footprint, which is, they're
See, I'm
saying,
thinking like the light
It kinda goes with
sand
their-
that you walk
their
in, it doesn't really leave a footprint. It just it's got an indentation, not an actual.
I mean,
You know what I'm
and
saying?
yeah, I do.
Okay.
I do. But another thing to keep in mind is, and I don't know exactly how it would affect something like that, but just like we talked about, what we talked about a while ago, the lack of gravity and atmosphere.
right,
Who knows? I don't know if it would make a more distinct footprint or a less distinct footprint,
Right.
but you're going to have a hard time convincing me there's not some effect
right.
on it, one way or the other.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't the gravity have?
There's no gravity on the moon.
That's what I meant. There's
No,
no
there is
gravity.
gravity,
Well,
just not
the
very
gravity
much.
we know.
Right.
Not the gravity we
Not that
know.
Because there's gravity on Earth.
Right.
Well, that keeps it on the ground. Well, wouldn't it have to be like either Photoshop because the rock is on the
We
ground?
didn't have Photoshop
No.
too much back.
Plus, remember,
Dude, not saying it in.
the gravity on Earth is a lot stronger. We weigh a lot more dense on Earth. Here, not that's up here. Bad joke. Number 6. Bad joke, number 6. I'm kidding. Anyways, so you have more pull to the Earth, so you're going to leave maybe a deeper impression on Earth versus on the ground versus up there. But still, you still leave some kind of impression on Earth. You got to check your phones for it. You're looking for hate comments or what?
According to, I was
No, go
talking to little guy over there.
Yeah.
According to exploratorium.edu, I do weigh 223 pounds here on the Earth, but on the moon I would have weighed 37 pounds.
On Earth. On the moon.
So-
Sorry, yep. Well, here's NASA's explanation.
I'm less than a bag of feed on the
I
moon.
believe it.
Bag of feed.
It could be a bag of anyways.
Hey now.
NASA's explanation is the moon's surface is dust or a fine powder that closely resembles volcanic ash. The footprint can long last after being created thanks to the airless vacuum on the moon. That's why if you look at pictures, not so much now, but I mean because nobody's been up there forever, but you still, if they go up there, the footprint's still going to be there, regardless of what everybody thinks. Who's disturbing it? Nobody is. Number one.
It's asteroid, whatever it gets hit.
That we know of.
That's right.
If you want to dive into
Okay.
the asteroid scene.
The whole government base on the dark side of the moon is a different episode.
Yeah.
Well, what I meant, wouldn't the rock be floating if there was
No.
no gravity?
It's a different type of, a whole different type of air up there.
And that might
Plus,
not
there's a,
just be a rock.
it's a vacuum too, like I said, effect where it's pulling it towards the. Anyways, all right, number 7.
I thought it was funny. It should
Number-
be.
Yeah, no. Number 7. So when the astronauts left, they left parts of the actual Eagle lunar module there. The U.S. flag still there, and several other instruments, tools, etc. were left behind. Question is to conspiracy theorists: why can't these items be seen from Earth or from Earth's telescopes, including the Hubble telescope? They say, why can't you figure the cities on the moon still to this day? It happened in 1969. Why aren't they visible to the naked eye, to any Earth known telescopes? Look in the Hubble. You can't physically look at the moon and see it. Anybody?
Do they know exactly what they're looking at?
What?
Do they know exactly where they're looking at with the actual landing?
If that's true, I'm at a loss for that one.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, by the naked eye, I mean.
I mean, if you look at the moon, do you see it?
Well, yeah, but
Yeah. You can put clothes on if you want to. Boo! But great.
Yeah.
How much fun would that be?
But still, with
I
a
took
really good
astronomy.
telescope,
Do what?
with a really good telescope, that I can see.
Well, the
Why
best known
people would think
telescope
you
on
should be
Earth
able to.
is the Hubble telescope. I mean, and they
I,
can't see it.
Depending on position and everything else, it's.
Yeah. I took astronomy in college, and
Right.
the professor took us out to the country, and he set up his telescope, which he had it set up to a computer, and he was, I mean,
Right.
it was beautiful.
Right.
We were able to see actually the rings of Saturn.
Yeah.
Too, and which was amazing
Right.
to me.
But
You know, and the
could you
moon,
see it?
the moon was huge in it, but you couldn't see
Did
it.
you see anything on Earth? The rings of Saturn. Could you see anything?
Oh, it was very faint. I mean, it's
Exactly.
tiny
Exactly.
thing. But when he pointed it to the moon, what we could see.
You can see some of the craters, right?
You can see
probably.
the craters, and it was, really
Could
large.
you see what was in the craters? Can you
God,
see?
no.
Okay.
No.
Well, here's the thing with that. And if anybody has any more questions or anything, comments, that's great. First of all, there is no known telescopes on Earth that even have the resolving power to even view those. Number one, because they're from here to the moon, they're probably dots.
It's 3 days journey.
I mean, it's not like they're these big giant objects as we know on Earth. Plus, I mean, the most thing you could see with an actual telescope from Earth would have to be bigger than an actual house to even be seen. Now, how these objects, tools, the flag, you probably can't see them. Number one. Plus, you got to deal with, like you talked about, light, space, the air itself. Plus, they would have bleached out the flag by now, they think. They're assuming because of the natural sunlight. Think about the flags on Earth here.
That's true.
If you have a flag out, how quick does it fade away?
Yeah, but humidity also plays a
You're
factor
right.
into
Well,
that.
what do we know it's on the moon's surface?
Yeah.
Nobody's gone out.
Do you
Nobody's
have-
gone out.
Do you have Buzz's telephone number or call
Yeah, I
him?
did. No,
Ask him.
no, I'm trying.
What's the humidity like?
No, but I was gonna say something to it. Yeah, I was gonna say something. Dang it, I forgot. He asked me a question. I mean, it is what it is. It's just it blinds. I mean, think about even when you go to like, I mean, if you want to, if you go to Mount Everest and you get snow blind and shit like that.
Oh,
I mean,
God,
with your eyes, you can't see shit. I
You
mean,
can't. You're not. Shouldn't.
think about the unprotected moon that has nothing blocking it, no houses, no trees, no whatever, no clouds,
no atmosphere.
nothing. And these things are natural elements. You have the sun beating on it every day. I mean, it's gonna eventually go away. But they claim it's still up there. Everything's still up there. If you go up there and visit, everything's gonna be in the same spot they left it.
Well, it should be.
Or
I
the
mean,
movies.
they don't know for
In the
sure.
studio,
It'll be in the
it's
same spot.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? It could be tipped over. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean, it could have been all hit by
Asteroid?
space debris, anything. Asteroid.
Aliens could have came and got it. Ooh,
Yeah.
That was my thought. Gotta clean it up for these humans all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
Think like So, anyways, that's people want to say that people don't want to believe it's there. People want to say it's still there. Who knows? I mean, we'll never know until they go up there and send somebody up there again and say, "Hey, look, it's right here. It's Studio B." I'm just kidding.
Excuse me, it was like
Hey, we found DB Cooper.
72 or something.
Yeah. Right. Number
Yeah, right
8.
next to DB Cooper.
Yeah, Bigfoot. Number 8. This is well, what about these strange lights appearing in this photo? It proves it was done in a movie studio. You're gonna see it here in just a minute. Okay.
It's up there.
I know it is. It's coming. We're behind people at home, so that's why we can't see it as well. You're gonna see it. Okay, look at these lights.
That's lens flare.
Exactly.
Thank you.
That's exactly what they said. It's lens flare. So what? But look at the actual lens flare itself. You see what's in it?
You talked about the crosses?
Crosses and stuff. I mean, they're like,
Oh,
that's movie studio footage.
no, it's not. I've used cameras with stuff like that in
Right.
it to photograph wounds in my day job.
Right.
Thank you.
Yep, it's plain and simple. That's
It's a
exactly
measuring
what
device,
not
is all
that.
it is.
Normal photographer, you know,
Yeah.
any photographer who takes it serious would figure that out.
No, J.J. Abrams figured it out. He puts in every movie
Yes,
he does.
yes.
Lens
Star
flare is
Wars.
big. Star Trek. That's his biggest. That's it. What she's known for is lens flare. That's like what NASA said. It's just lens flare. One thing that, well, let me think in here. I'll just say it. This is what it says here. One of the simplest answers was lens flare. Number 2 is why in the hell would NASA spend millions of dollars to fake this event and then make such a huge error like this with the lighting? I mean, common sense. Why would they fake everything and then, oh shit, we didn't even see that, or you know, or looked it or whatever. So this lens flare, which shows the camera's lens itself shows up due to the lens.
So
like,
maybe back then when they did all this stuff, you've been in photography, was lens flare a big thing back then?
lens flare happens tomorrow.
The lens flare happens
No,
on my.
I know,
I mean,
but
yeah.
you've only been
Lens-
shooting pictures for how long?
I have.
I'm saying back then, these idiots that thought that, maybe they didn't know. Maybe it wasn't a big thing yet or something. Is where I'm going with
No,
that?
lens flare is the right answer. It's explaining why it is occurring.
Right.
It's a natural occurrence.
Right,
Because
but
light
them
gets into the
saying,
lens.
that it was something else, is it because they wouldn't have known?
They're saying it's studio lighting.
If
Yeah,
it's
it's
studio
the-
lighting, why are they even
Yeah.
posting or letting that out?
Yeah.
Why
Just
would they
to
even
irritate
allow that photograph to be let out if you obviously see studio lighting there in the background? I mean, come on. I mean, I really truly think that NASA is a little smarter than that would allow a footage of studio lighting in the background to be seen by everybody. To me, it just looks like flare coming off of the camera right there.
I mean,
I mean, you saw that right away.
You have all the lights, natural light, the sun, the earth itself.
Well, and it's not just these right here, but every single one of those is radiating from another point.
Right.
And that's classic telltale sign of lens flare.
Right.
Almost every example of lens flare that you see in any kind of picture is going to have that feature. There'll be multiple flares,
We get
and they'll
that.
all radiate from a central point.
We get that with the paranormal when people take photographs and think that they're seeing a glowing light and they think it's, you know, oh, it's my dead loved one, you know, that's coming back. You know, it's lens flare. I'm sorry, you know, it's. I
We
mean,
get it. We set up cameras too. When you have one IR camera facing another IR camera, it reflects a weird kind of a glow. And it's a light source. Get into the lens of the camera you're using, and it's just creating a weird exposure. I mean, it's a pretty logical explanation to us, but to people that won't have a different view, they may have, like I said, camera lighting, studio lighting.
Right.
What did you think, Max, on that? I mean, would you agree this is just simple lens flare? I think you said yourself, you yelled it first before Jeremiah was yelling it.
Yeah,
Lens flare.
I mean, that is definitely.
honestly.
That's not refuting anything you've thought so far to this point. It doesn't change your opinion. It's just
No.
this picture has lens.
I mean, I've heard
Yeah.
about this one specifically. I've heard a lot about, well, there's supposed to be, you know, secondary lights too, where the flares from that,
Right.
things like that. Trying to find. I mean,
I'd love it if that was your flow right there.
it's definitely.
I'd love it if it was.
You see how it like stops and goes, and
It's just like right there, you know.
it's coming in for a close up.
Could it be maybe a big mound or something?
I think that's just an optical illusion from the way the fire gathers through the picture.
What are you talking about?
If you look at on the horizon in that picture on the left hand side.
Oh,
of the
there's a
page.
shadow underneath the UFO.
That must be it.
Sorry.
Why is there crosses?
That's from the.
The government put them there.
It's from the
Aliens.
camera, Leo. The actual video cameras they're using, they like to aim and keep
So
things
technically,
free.
government.
But there's
Oh,
four.
it's a camera.
Just, yeah.
Yeah, you would see
What
it
about
on your
that
camera.
ghost shot?
Right.
Yep, it's
All
definitely
right.
ghost.
Okay.
Let's move on.
We're almost done here, guys, with this week's episode. But
Oh wow.
we're gonna finish up with a couple of videos. First one is the actual Neil Armstrong first. This is his camera. We're gonna kill the sound in the studio so you can't hear us talking over it, but once you start playing it.
Are you ready for me to cut audio and play it?
Yeah, go ahead whenever you're ready.
40 feet down, 2.5. Picking up some dust. 30 feet, 2.5 down. Fake shadow. 4 forward. 4 forward, drifting to the right a little. 20.5. Contact light. Okay, engine stop. Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Roger, Tranquility. We copy you on the ground. You got a bunch of guys about to turn blue. We're breathing again. Thanks a lot. Okay, Neil, we can see you coming down the ladder now. I'm at the foot of the ladder. The limb footbeds are only depressed in the surface about 1 or 2 inches. I'm going to step off the limb now. That's 1 small step for man, 1 giant leap for mankind. Tony, this is so great you can't believe it. I believe it, Charlie. It's raining, John. Look at it go, would you, Charlie? You got all your steering. It's great. Oh, this is going to be some kind of different ride. Hippity hoppity, hippity hopping over hill and dale. Da 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 da. Hippity hopping along. 1 ignition. Right away, Houston. Vector good.
We're burning flat.
That's fine.
Looks good, flat.
How's the base shot flight?
That's it. Yes, I'm back to studio now. Okay. So yeah, the video you just saw, that was Neil Armstrong filming from his camera and stuff like that, just having some fun, and showed when he actually landed. You saw in the very beginning, I know the footage, the video was very grainy because it's the real footage. I mean, it wasn't altered, it wasn't doctored, it was other than put together basically. But, so you could see when they landed, the thrusters kicking on, the throttle, whatever you want to call it, landing. They didn't create a big to-do, whatever, when they landed. Walking around on there, you can see the type of gravity they had. I mean, it kept them down, but they had to bounce around. I know some conspiracy theorists will claim that they've attached to wires and stuff like that, and that's why it gave the unorthodox movement, and they're bouncing back and forth, things of that nature. And the final scene you see is them taking off from Earth, leaving behind the pads, whatever, and everything in the base, and this small little capsule that they left in. And then, of course, they landed in the water and came back to the U.S. of that nature. So it wasn't a big, powerful rocket explosion off of the Earth, or the Moon, excuse me. It was just a quick little, and it's gone. I mean, that's simple.
You wouldn't need much.
Right. So that was just one video of the actual footage. To wrap up things here in just a minute, I have a fun video that people like Max should be wary of. I'm just kidding, Max. I love you, buddy. This is what happened when somebody questioned Buzz Aldrin. And remember, this Buzz was at the time was 40-some. He's in his 80s now. This is the guy that was adamant about, he was a conspiracy theorist that the moon landing was fake, and he was pestering Buzz Aldrin outside of a hotel at a talk Buzz Aldrin was giving out his book. What's it called? The book is about man or whatever, something like that, whatever. So, were you gonna say something, Max?
Yeah, I want to go on record that not all conspiracy theorists do this.
No, I know.
I am not one of them.
This is great. This is my favorite video of Buzz. Don't piss Buzz off. So.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
Please? Yeah.
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
I'm not trying to get in the middle of anything.
You tell him to get out of here.
This is a hotel.
We'll call the police.
We pay.
Come on in here, we'll call the police.
Solicit
Why don't you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon?
It doesn't, sir, I don't have nothing to do with this, but you cannot solicit on this property.
We just paid to rent out the penthouse to shoot up there. So
you can't solicit like this on this property.
Keep shooting.
All right, well then I'd go through my measures.
Yeah.
You got to keep shooting, man. Okay, well, you can put it on your shoulder. Don't be shy.
Just come with me, Buzz.
You really like adventure, don't you?
You're the one who said you walked on the moon when you didn't. Calling the kettle black, if I ever thought of it. Saying I misrepresented myself.
Away from me.
You're a coward and a liar and a thief.
Beautiful.
That look on his face.
God bless fucking Buzz Aldrin. That's it.
That look on his face.
I love it, dude.
That's
Dude,
awesome.
8 years old, and you know, you keep pestering him and getting his face. He can let you know what he thinks about you.
You didn't see that?
No, I was
How
like
did
right
you
there
not
and I
see
didn't
that?
see it.
Yeah, he let the guy have it. You don't piss Buzz Aldrin off. The guy,
Wow.
Have you
Like I
never
said,
seen that?
No.
Yeah.
kudos to freaking Buzz
Well,
Aldrin. I
because
love
they're-
it. I love
Buzz.
God bless him. We're the best American out there.
That's awesome.
So, like I said, who are we to say that it did or didn't happen? Who knows? I mean, there's people that are going to believe whatever they want to believe. And all the stuff we talked about tonight, I mean, it is what it is. That's why there's conspiracy theories. But some of the stuff they say, it makes you wonder. I mean,
I don't know.
what?
Just
What's
the
really
hundreds of people that work in mission controls and everything, to keep something such huge worldwide shut and quiet
for so long,
for
many
so
years.
long.
Yep.
To me, it's too unbelievable to think that it was fake.
Right.
That's my opinion. Sorry if I get too outrageous, but I'm just trying to
nothing wrong with that.
point things out. But there's too many factors in the work of people involved in it.
Right.
That it was just too big of a story to just film with Stanley Kubrick in a frickin' studio somewhere.
Right.
It was too big of a story, too big of an event. I'm sorry, I just can't buy it that it was fake.
I mean, you have to get hundreds of people to buy into this conspiracy, as far as, like Jason was saying, to
Thousands, actually.
Thousands. From the
Thousands.
workers, the builders, the mission control, everybody behind the scenes.
Yeah,
There's
They'll all
never been
tell
a
them-
rumor of the government doing that before.
Not to this extreme.
There is a conspiracy theory coming up in later episodes that we will
Dude,
talk
come on.
about. That
This
kind
long with
of
NASA,
goes along with that
Yeah.
talk.
the story.
In general.
No, I'm not saying that they've never been
No.
on the moon. I'm saying it didn't happen when it did. Because of the race.
Okay.
What about the moon? What about the launching?
The what?
The actual video when
the
they launch
launch.
in space.
Have people being there at the.
Yeah.
Being there and they watched it go up.
Yeah, there's video of that too. I didn't put it on here because I didn't really. I mean, it's a rocket ship going up. So what?
The timeline of events.
Yeah.
Everything.
But, well, anybody's thoughts changed about what they thought they knew at one point versus to what was discussed tonight? Have they shifted anywhere or
Probably
changed?
not.
I mean, you believe what you still believe in any of the stuff we talked about? We got through 3 cases or 3 topics, which is great. I mean, it brought up some great discussion. It's going to continue to bring up some great discussion afterwards, I'm sure. Plus, we have other ones coming up in the future. There's one I can't wait to get to.
Yes.
It's the one everybody knows of, and we'll talk about it one day, and it's going to be probably a whole episode of nothing but this. Stay tuned for that part. I might tell you what it is. But anyway, any thoughts, Jason? Any final thoughts?
Nope. We have Nest City coming up this weekend.
Public event.
Public event
Tickets still
on
available?
Saturday. As far as I know, there's
Yes.
tickets still available. You need to call the Nest City Bank Building Foundation.
Don't just show up expecting to get in. Because if they're sold out, they're sold out.
Yeah, because we will have to cut people.
Yeah,
turn
they will
people
turn
away.
you away.
I will even turn you away. Yeah. I know Isla will probably. Well, I don't know. She won't.
And it's a beautiful building. That picture doesn't do it justice. It's 4 stories, at least 3 actual stories with the basement we can go into possibly. And the building is not that small. It goes along the length. That's just the one side of it. It's real long also too. So there's plenty of room to explore, investigate, and have some fun. I think all of us have been there pretty much.
Very active, very active.
I have.
Yeah. Max,
No,
and,
Max
Max, and
too.
Max and Ruby have.
Max and Ruby haven't.
Max and Ruby gonna take over it.
But anybody else want to weigh in on anything before we call it another night? That's one night.
I'm good.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Well, first of all, thank you guys to everybody in studio. Thank you for the viewers at home once again. And if this stuff happened, who knows? Only time will tell. Maybe we'll find out one day or another that everything we've ever learned was all a lie. But maybe this show's not even real. So, but in case,
It's
find out next
broadcasted
week.
in technicolor in a different universe.
Find out next week and see if we come back. Same time, 7 to 9.
Hopefully.
See ya.
See you guys.
Good night.